Georgia Tech's great football tradition began with legendary coach Heisman, whose name has come to symbolize football excellence. Ironically, the Yellow Jackets senior quarterback Joe Hamilton figured prominently in this season's Heisman voting, finishing second.
Here comes Hamilton. Joe's going to keep it. Touchdown, Georgia Tech!
Today, in his final college game, Hamilton plays against a Miami team that features a future Heisman hopeful, Santana Moss.
Rock and roll, touchdown, Hurricanes!
The 55th Toyota Gator Bowl, a showcase for two top 25 teams and a pair of explosive offensive stars. NBC Sports presents the 2000 Toyota Gator Bowl. From Alltel Stadium in Jacksonville, Florida, it's the Miami Hurricanes against the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. And Miami taking the field, representing the Big East Conference.
It's been a century of leadership for Ford. We were the first to make cars
third in the nation. And the Yellow Jackets of Georgia Tech, they're 8-3 from the Atlantic Coast Conference, and they're ranked number 50. And welcome to Jacksonville. Tom Hammond and James Lofton. And on behalf of everybody at NBC Sports, Happy New Year, Happy New Millennium. And we're Y2K ready with a good football game here today. And of course, Georgia Tech comes in with a powerful offensive team, the best offensive unit in the nation. It all revolves around Joe Hamilton.
And what do you want to talk about Joe Hamilton first? You want to talk about his running or his passing ability? You talk about a guy who accounted for 35 touchdowns, 29 through the air, and 6 on the ground. He's a great passer. He can throw from the pocket. He can scramble. He can move around. But when you talk to defensive coaches around the country, the one word that keeps popping up is option. They're worried about him running that option. He uses all his players in that option offense.
He's just so versatile. And, of course, Miami comes in with a game breaker on offense, too, and receiver Santana Moss.
And Santana Moss is now being billed as a Heisman Trophy candidate for 2008. He's a little reluctant in that terminology. He doesn't want his teammates writing him about it. But talk about teammates. He has 2 quarterbacks who are available, and both will play today, and they're very willing to get this guy the ball. Kenny Kelly, of course, is a great baseball standout. Look at his numbers. But then Ken Dorsey, the true freshman, look at those last 2 numbers. 10 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. This is a true freshman, a guy who, when he walks around campus, says, yeah, I just look like a regular student.
And Coach Butch Davis hopes to get both his quarterbacks in the game in the first quarter, if at all possible. The Miami Hurricanes against the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, the Toyota Gator Bowl from Jacksonville. Back with the kickoff in just a moment. Welcome back to Alltel Stadium in Jacksonville for the Toyota Gator Bowl. The Hurricanes against the Yellow Jackets. Tom Hammond and James Lofton here from Alltel Stadium. And also with us today is Craig Sager on the sideline. Let's check in with him now, Craig.
Well, there are no Y2K glitches at Alltel Stadium. From 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., the wireless communication company held a full system check. Sound, scoreboard, jumbotron, electricity, ventilation, escalators, elevators, all in working condition before and after midnight. If there are any glitches, they will not be Y2K related. Except perhaps a weary-eyed Georgia Tech team that at midnight was awakened by the sights and sounds of football fans and New Year's Eve revelers celebrating their passion for football and the dawn of a new millennium. Rockin' the Riverfest, a spectacular array of fireworks and lasers lit up the sky and rolled the Jackets out of their adjacent hotel beds. Meanwhile, the Miami team was resting peacefully at a Jacksonville beach resort nearly an hour away. Tom?
All right, Craig, we heard the fireworks. They lasted over 20 minutes. Spectacular, but the Yellow Jackets probably not welcoming that fireworks display last night. The Yellow Jackets do have the best bowl record all time, best in the nation. Georgia Tech will kick off. Miami won the toss, elected to receive. Luke Monge to kick off with Moser and Moss, the deep men for Miami. And the Toyota Gator Bowl is underway. That's Santana Moss at the 6. Moss cuts back across the 25, spinning his way to the 34-yard line where Jeremy Myers makes the tackle for Georgia Tech. There's a look at Kenny Kelly, who is a professional baseball player in the minor leagues in the Tampa Bay organization and is the sophomore quarterback of the Hurricanes, getting the start today. There's the offensive lineup with Mercier and Gonzalez, All-Americans up front for the Canes. Kelly, Jackson, Fulcher, Moss, Wayne, and Franks. Franks, the tight end, is an All-American and a definite pro prospect. First down play for the Canes. And the give is to the lone setback, James Jackson. Picks his way forward after reversing his field and gets it out to the 42-yard line. About 7 yards on first down before a strong safety, Chris Young, makes the tackle. 7-yard gain on first down. Here's the Georgia Tech defense. A defense that is heavily laden with freshman players. Have done a good job for Coach George O'Leary coming into the defense. That's the front four, with Wimbush, Mitchell, Edwards, Tillman, Clark, Myers, and Young rounding out the Georgia Tech defensive lineup. Now, they've struggled on defense, ranked 100th in the nation, and very young, as we said. Here's a first down run by Jackson. His second carry nets about 3 yards and a first down before Tony Robinson makes the tackle for Georgia Tech. And James, one of the Hurricane strategies is to pound the ball on the ground against Georgia Tech, keep Joe Hamilton on the sideline.
Yeah, exactly. You would like to keep Joe Hamilton on the sideline, and Butch Davis, you know, he'll have one eye on the field and another eye on the clock and really be watching to see how much time they run off before they actually run each and every play.
High formation this time. Fulcher, the fullback, Jackson, the tailback. First down play, opening series of the game, the Toyota Gator Bowl. First pass, Kelly, high but caught. Reggie Wayne made the reception, and Wayne pulled it down right in front of Travaris Tillman for a big Miami gain on the first pass of the game.
And when you think about quarterbacks, here's a guy who plays center field, so you know that he has a strong arm. Watch Reggie Wayne come down. He tries to set him up with an outside move, and it's a high inside fastball. And Reggie Wayne goes up, he climbs the ladder, and comes down with the first big play of the ball game.
It goes for 16 yards to Reggie Wayne, who caught 40 during the regular season. And here's Ken Dorsey, now at quarterback, replacing Kelly. Dorsey with his first snap. It's a handoff to Jackson. And Jackson fumbles the football, and Georgia Tech recovers. Nope, they say it was down. No fumble. Myers jarred the ball loose, but they say that Jackson had already had a knee down.
And that has to be so frustrating for George O'Leary. We talked to him yesterday. He said, you know, the ball had been on the ground. This team is last in the nation in forcing turnovers. Only had two fumble recoveries the entire year. He said the ball's on the ground, but, you know, our young guys just can't seem to get to it.
There's that sad turnover ratio story for George O'Leary. 8-yard gain for Jackson. Here's a 2nd and 2. Deflected pass and incomplete. So Dorsey's first try through the air deflected by Philippe Claybrooks at a defensive end.
Yeah, you see it when you watch television on Saturday. You see it on Sunday. If you can't get to that quarterback, get your arms up. And Dorsey, even though he stands 6'5", he's still going to throw the ball. And if you're tall like Claybrooks is, you can get up and you can get in those passing lanes.
Here's a third down play. Will McPartland into the backfield with Jackson. McPartland is the fullback. 3rd and 2. Fulcher in motion. Jackson, blockers in front, has the first down. Inside the 20, still on his feet. And out of bounds around the 5-yard line. Tillman knocked him out to save the touchdown.
You know, when we talked to James Jackson in our interview room the other day, he came in and he said 210. I said, well, what's that, your weight? He said, no, that's the record for the number of yards gained in the Gator Bowl. Well, we looked it up. It's actually 216.
Close enough.
So, but that's what he has his eye on, and that really tells you what their game plan is. Seen him run the ball and run it pretty effectively to start here.
They'll mark him out of bounds at the 8-yard line. 1st and goal at the 8 for the Canes. Miami excellent on first drives and always a good omen for them. When they do well on the opening drive, they usually win. Dorsey with a handoff to Jackson again, and Jackson for the touchdown. rushing touchdown of the season for James Jackson, the workhorse on that drive, as Miami pounded it down the field from the opening kickoff. And when they score first since 1983, they have won 92% of the time. Crosland will attempt the extra point from the hold of Popovich. And the point after try is up and good. Impressive Miami drive to open the game. James Jackson got the touchdown. An 8-yard run as he tried the left side. Jackson across the goal line, and the Hurricanes on top. Miami leads Georgia Tech first quarter 7-0.
The 2000 Toyota Gator Bowl is brought to you by Toyota. Go for it every day.
James Jackson and the Hurricanes made it look easy. Jackson 5 carries, 50 yards on the opening drive of the game, as the Hurricanes took just over 2.5 minutes. 7 plays, 67 yards. So now Georgia Tech, with the nation's best offense, will hope to answer, as they'll have their first offensive position. Crosland is set to kick it off to White and Campbell, who are deep for the Yellow Jackets. What's that do to your offense, James, when you see the opposing team bang, 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 march easily down the field?
Well, I don't think it's the first time that Georgia Tech has seen it, but it still is like getting hit in the stomach, and the wind gets knocked out of you. You have to regroup, but, you know, what better guy to regroup behind than Joe Hamilton?
Absolutely. Crosland has it teed up and ready to go. There's a look at Joe Hamilton, who will be directing the Tech offense. Crosland's kick bounces, taken on the bounce by Campbell. Campbell crossed the 20, broke free for a moment, and then is wrapped up at about the 26-yard line by Ken Dangerfield. And here's Joe Hamilton, the All-American, the Heisman runner-up, winner of the Davey O'Brien Quarterback Award, the first Georgia Tech player ever named Atlantic Coast Conference Player of the Year. He is absolutely rewritten the Georgia Tech and ACC record books, and he's in his final college game. 18 yards on the return. Pretty good field position for the Jackets on their first snap. There are the numbers for Hamilton. Hamilton to throw. Swing pass is complete. Gregory evading tacklers. Has almost 10 yards before Al Blades is able to chase him down, and Mike Rumpf as well. Brown, Burks, King, Key, and Carmen up front. Carmen, second-team All-American and All-ACC choice. Hamilton with Gregory, Wilder, Campbell, White, who was co-MVP with Hamilton in the Gator Bowl last year, and the tight end, Andrzejewski. It was 10 yards and enough for a first down on the swing pass to Campbell, actually 11-yard gain. So Tech with a first down on its initial play from scrimmage. Here's Hamilton behind the blocker, caught for the ankle and tripped up just across the 40 to the 42. Michael Burrow made the tackle for the Canes. Here's the Miami defense. Burrow, who made that tackle, with Lewis, Sweeney, and Joseph up front. Nate Webster, All-American linebacker, is the leading tackler on that defense, with Rumpf, Myers, Blades, and Reed in the defensive backfield. Blades, of course, with great bloodlines, the brother of Benny and Brian, who both played at Miami and in the NFL. Second down play. Here's the reverse pitch. Campbell has one man to beat. Put a move on him, and now with the angle, they get him out of bounds just shy of the 30-yard line. Edward Reed, the strong safety, had the angle, but Campbell, with that blazing 4.3 speed, made a nice move.
And so much is made of the speed of the Florida schools, Florida State, Florida, and of course Miami here. But when you want to counter with speed, you go with Kelly Campbell, a guy who, you know, I'm a track guy, and coming out of college, you know, coming out of high school rather, not a lot of people thought of him as a football player. He goes on a recruiting trip up to Western Michigan, and he tries to go out in the snow to see how fast he can run up there, and he said, no, I don't think I want to go and just play football. You know, I'm going to wait a while, and A lot of schools passed on him, waited on him, and Georgia Tech finally came around and said, okay, you can play here. He caught 11 passes in 98 and just exploded for a huge season this year in 90 with 69 receptions.
That run covered 27 yards and gives Tech a first down in Miami territory. The option give to the fullback Wilder. He plows ahead for 3 or 4 yards. Dan Morgan, outside linebacker of the Hurricanes, making the stop of Wilder.
Okay, in these first scripted plays, we've seen them line up with two tight ends go in motion. That time we saw them line up in the wishbone. We've seen what looked like a single wing. Ralph Friedgen is the offensive coordinator. He wants to throw a lot of wrinkles in at the beginning of the game. They run base plays, but he wants to see how the defense adjusts to their different looks. And they've had a month to prepare, and Miami's had a month to worry.
Friedgen, the winner of the Frank Broyles Award, is the top assistant coach in the nation. Hamilton changing the play. O'Leary says he does that sometimes when there's no huddle, about 90% of the time. Has the freedom to do it anytime. Deflected, though, and intercepted by Matt Sweeney. Big Matt Sweeney, the senior from Lafayette, New Jersey, got a paw up to deflect the Hamilton pass and then hauled it in as well and set sail upfield. Of course, Hamilton only 5'10" or less. That's been the big question mark about him.
Yeah, and he just makes a nice swim move. You see how high he is. Wouldn't matter if Joe Hamilton was 6'5". That ball is still going to be blocked. So it's not high. And what he does, he just beats Brent Key on the right side, gets in, gets those hands up. And Joe Hamilton talked about what a good athlete he is. Well, we know that he can tackle somebody who weighs almost 300 pounds.
Well, Tech does not force many turnovers of its own, so when they commit one, it's especially critical. Sweeney also took it for 16 yards on the return. So first down Miami after the turnover, and Dorsey still at quarterback. Play action fake, Dorsey rolling to his right, looking downfield, throwing a bad one, and almost intercepted. It was way short, and Chris Young just about picked it off for Georgia Tech.
You don't think of this guy, Ken Dorsey, as being the elusive one. And you have Kenny Kelly. He's a guy who has good mobility, but at 6'5", this is a guy who can move around a little bit much better than what we thought. Watch down here at the bottom. You're going to see Reggie Wayne go. He's going to get left, freeze it right there, wide open, but a quarterback in distress does not see well down the field.
Dorsey, who completed nearly 62% of his passes during the regular season, is 0 for 2 today. Here's the give to Jackson. This time Tech is ready for him. They hit him at the line of scrimmage and drive him back. No gain on the play. James Jackson, who gained 50 yards on the Canes' opening touchdown drive. Clay Brooks and Robinson, center of the defensive line, put the stop on him that time.
And when you talk to Miami, the thing that they wanted to win on first down. They wanted to get in those 2nd and 6, come up with a 2nd and 10. You really don't gain anything. Now you have 3rd and 10 or 3rd and an extremely long 9. And this has to play into the hands of Georgia Tech. This is where Georgia Tech must make its first stop of the ball game.
Wayne, King, and Moss, 3 wide receivers in the formation for Dorsey. Dorsey delivers incomplete between his 2 intended receivers. Bubba Franks was one of them, and Andre King appeared to be the other.
And you get guys who are kind of tweeners, guys who can play linebacker and end, and Bubba Franks is the security blanket. Well, this time the guy who has a hold of that security blanket is not Linus, it's Nick Rogers. And we talked about a guy who can play both positions. That time he's a defensive end who lines up at linebacker.
Well, Nick pulled the blanket out from under just like Linus would have done, I'll tell you that. And a punting situation as Freddie Capshaw will punt for Miami, and Hester the deep man for the Jackets. Hester will let it bounce, and it bounds into the end zone for the touchback. So for the Yellow Jackets, no harm done on the turnover. They get the ball back after a 53-yard punt. Miami leads Georgia Tech 7-0. 9 minutes left in the first quarter. 7-0 Miami over Georgia Tech in the Gator Bowl. Log on to MSNBCSports.com for more on all the bowl games, including today's Gator Bowl. For many of the seniors on both Miami and Georgia Tech, including Yellow Jacket star quarterback Joe Hamilton, this will be their final collegiate game. Check out some of their reflections on their collegiate careers, plus see if you can score a touchdown on a Gator Bowl quiz. MSNBCSports.com, the official website of NBC Sports.
talk about those Miami seniors, and Butch Davis has really turned this program around. All 17 seniors on track to graduate.
First down, Georgia Tech at their own 20-yard line, trailing 7-0. Hamilton rolling, now in trouble and finding a seam up the middle. Tracked down after a gain of about 7 by Damian Lewis. Hamilton is so elusive, looking to pass one way, saw a seam open up the other and scooted right through it.
You know, there's so much talk about Joe Hamilton in the next level, and the guy who kind of models himself after is Doug Flutie. Well, I talked to Doug Flutie's offensive coordinator, Joe Pendry. Said, you know, I've seen Hamilton on TV a couple times, and I wouldn't put it past him to be able to play at the next level and play pretty well.
Same thing as Coach George O'Leary says. I wouldn't bet against him. Carried for first down by Sean Gregory, tackled by Nate Webster. And as we mentioned, all his life, Joe Hamilton has followed Doug Flutie from his days at Boston College when he made his big name against the Miami Hurricanes. Up in Canada when he played, and now with the Buffalo Bills. And Hamilton has already been drafted by a Canadian team. They own the rights to him, but he's hoping to be drafted by an NFL team and make an NFL roster next season. Here's the option play, and the give is to Wilder, the fullback. Wilder takes it for 3 or 4 yards. And the pride of Alvin, South Carolina, Joe Hamilton. Joe and Ginger making the trip from Alvin today, as did most of that town of 500.
Learn to play in the backyard of the barbershop. Right?
That's right, Kinlaw's Barbershop. Kinlaw's Barbershop, and all the Kinlaw's Barbershop regulars are here at the game today. It was out behind Kinlaw's that they used to have the pickup football game. Hamilton swing pass for Gregory over his head and incomplete.
What is Michael Burrow doing without his helmet on? I mean, do you think an offensive lineman might have gotten his hands up around that face mask and just nudged it off a little bit?
I wasn't aware that offensive linemen ever did that.
You know, they try not to.
You see Michael with "play hard" written on the tape on his right hand. His wife, Batavia, presented him with a baby daughter. He found out about it, in fact, flying back from the Florida State game. Burrow, whose family originally from Haiti. Here's the third down play for the Yellow Jackets. 3rd and 6. Hamilton scrambling free. Will not have the first down. Miami was ready for his scramble. Dan Morgan was the first to hit him and drop him at the 40-yard line, and Tech will have to punt.
One of the things that Joe Hamilton is going to have to get accustomed to with this Miami defense is that they have just as much speed at linebacker as he does. When you look at Dan Morgan and Nate Webster, these guys are going to be able to close in a hurry, and he's going to have to protect himself.
Santana Moss, the deep man for Miami, is Dan Dyke, the academic All-American 4-point engineering student for Georgia Tech. Sends it on its way and blocked. The punt was blocked and taken down at the 19-yard line. Dyke made the saving tackle, but James Lewis broke through to block the punt. And how many times during this bowl season have we seen special teams and specifically blocked kicks?
Well, one of the things that Butch Davis talked about is you need to make a play on special teams, and he was concerned because he's watching the games during the bowl season. One of the things that he saw is that teams just didn't play as well on special teams because it is an area that you cannot practice at full speed and you can't have live contact. But that time the Canes come up with a big play.
Spot the ball at the 18-yard line. Miami already leading 7-0. Jackson tries the right side. And Georgia Tech with a great defensive job. The lineman stringing it out, and then Ricardo Wimbush, the top tackler for the Jackets, a freshman from Blakely, Georgia, makes the tackle.
You know, I'm not sure if I like that call so much. You try and spread the offense out, and then you run what amounts to a counter, where the running back starts up, then he's going to be led outside, and it's a wide play, and you've already stretched the team out, and so you just run right back into their strength.
And Kenny Kelly back at quarterback now for the Hurricanes. Kelly, the starter, had given way to Dorsey for a series, and now it's Kelly back again. Fulcher, the motion man. Kelly to throw. Low and incomplete as we check in with Craig Sager.
Well, Kenny Kelly suffered a dislocated index finger on the second play of the game and was replaced by Ken Dorsey. He went to the sidelines, had it pop back into place, and is now playing with the finger taped. But they will alternate both quarterbacks. This, of course, is Kelly's first action since he sprained his knee and suffered that shoulder injury back against Virginia Tech. Yeah.
Thanks, Craig. As you see the
thing about that, Tom, is that thing is going to swell up. They want it taped, but it's going to start to swell up. It's also going to start to throb.
That would seem to be critical, too, the index finger on his throwing hand. Pass for the end zone. No good. Out of bounds. Santana Moss made the reception. Jamar Clark close with him defensively, but ruled out of bounds and not a catch.
And in college football, you only need to have 1 foot in bounds. You can also go out of bounds, come back in bounds, and very seldom is Santana Moss going to have the height advantage. He's 5'9", Jamar Clark 5'8".
So Andy Crosland will attempt the field goal on 4th down. It'll be a 38-yard attempt. Popovich to hold. From 38 yards, the kick is up and no good. Well, once again, Georgia Tech narrowly averts disaster. An earlier interception didn't cost them any points. This time a blocked punt. No points for Miami. Still 7-0 Canes. First quarter, Toyota Gator Bowl, 7-0, Miami leading. Over on the sideline, Kelly on the phone. We thought he might be icing that index finger on his right hand, which is dislocated, but not at the moment. As Georgia Tech takes over. Gregory. Sean Gregory. Close to a first down. Blades and Reed on the tackle. And we talked about Joe Hamilton hoping to make professional football next year. Well, Kelly has a decision to make regarding professional baseball. He already plays in the minor leagues. There are his baseball numbers this past season.
He said making the throw from center field is a lot easier than making the throws from the pocket.
When he was drafted, he had a $450,000 signing bonus in the Tampa Bay organization. Option fake. Hamilton fires. Caught by Kelly Campbell. Leonard Myers had pretty good defense, but Hamilton threaded it in there, and Campbell able to make the grab. He had a Georgia Tech record 64 or 69 receptions in the regular season.
Imagine standing at the bottom of the dormitory and trying to throw a ball through a window. And that's what Joe Hamilton does here. He threads it through the window. But I'm watching Kelly Campbell as he comes back to the huddle. He runs past Nate Webster. He and Nate Webster exchanged words before the game. And Nate said, you come across the middle, you're going to pay. He said, hey, I'll take it.
It was Webster that paid that time. He gave up a 28-yard completion. Miami showing blitz on first down. Option play. Hamilton with the keep. Hit hard and dropped at the 35-yard line. As Hamilton kept it on the option.
You know, when I watched Georgia Tech warm up in pregame warm-ups, one of the first things the quarterbacks did when they came out on the field is they started practicing the option. Most of the time you think of quarterbacks, they come out, they casually play catch. No, they went straight to that option game. And I don't know if it was almost to intimidate Miami, say, hey, look at what we're practicing down here. You better be ready for it. 2nd and 5, 3 wide receivers in this formation. Hamilton now has carried 4 times, 21 yards. Draw play, Gregory. Sean Gregory to the 29-yard line, and a Tech first down, tripped up there by Dan Morgan. Gregory started the season as Tech's number 3 back, but has become their leading rusher, getting the opportunity because of injuries. And the one thing that Bill O'Brien, the running back coach, says about this kid is that he runs hard. And granted, all running backs are supposed to run hard, but he's a guy who squares his shoulders. He makes sure that he gets upfield. And you know what? He got in the end zone 13 times. So here's a guy who, when he gets close, he knows how to get in. First down, Georgia Tech, trailing 7-0. First quarter, Toyota Gator Bowl. Again, option, fullback, Wilder. Stacked up after a gain of 2 or 3 yards. Morgan and Webster in the middle of the defense. Nate Webster, who is the heart and soul of that defense, the junior from Miami, All-American for the 2nd time All-Big East, had 150 tackles
during the regular season, and also led them in interceptions. Had a Miami linebacker record 4 interceptions this season.
You know, he's listed at 6 feet tall. He's really about 5'10", and I just believe he's so short that most quarterbacks can't see him, but he's eye level with Joe Hamilton, so he'll know where he is today.
2nd and 8. Hamilton, quick toss, complete, and then dropped by Gregory. Looked like he had it, and as he turned upfield, the ball came free and an incomplete pass. It'll set up a 3rd and long for Georgia Tech.
And Joe Hamilton got that ball out quickly. He's trying to get it in the hands of Gregory. Gregory's just leaning upfield just a little too much. Ball goes right off his hands. I mean, they have a big play there because you can see Blades, the safety, who comes up, and he's in the chase position.
Yep.
So Gregory turns this ball, gets those shoulder squares, and they got another 10, 15 yards.
3rd and long, and the Jackets are 0 for 2 on 3rd down conversions. Ball for 27 of the Miami Hurricanes.
And O'Leary said that this is the best part of Miami's defense, their 3rd down pass.
From the shotgun, low snap. Hamilton picks it up. Lost it for the end zone over the head of his intended receiver, Kelly Campbell, and incomplete. Chris Campbell putting the pressure on Hamilton that time, and it'll be 4th down. So far, the Hurricanes have done a pretty good job against the nation's best offense. Georgia Tech comes in averaging 509 yards a game, tops in college football, and 2nd, trailing only Virginia Tech in scoring, putting up nearly 41 points a game. Mange to attempt a field goal. Puts it up, and it is no good. About a 45-yard field goal, no good. And Tech still held scoreless. At the Gator Bowl, it's 7-0 Miami. (7-0) Miami, leading Georgia Tech in the 1st quarter.
And Luke Mange, I talked to him before the ball game, and he said 45 yards is about where you just make normal kicks, but you cannot make a normal kick when the guys break through, because you're supposed to watch that ball, but believe me, you have great peripheral vision, and he sees big number 93 Michael Burrow breaking through, and Mange, you know, set a scoring record, but when that guy winds up in your peripheral, it distracts you quite a bit.
Miami taking over at their own 27-yard line. And the give is to Jackson. And Jackson breaking free and rips off about 14 yards across the 40 to the 41, where he's tripped up by Chris Young.
And if you're going to look at the strength of Miami, it's right up the middle. It's Tony Wise, nice double team block, and he really doesn't get touched until he gets to Myers, this free safety. And you know what? You don't want your free safety and your strong safety to lead the team in tackles. Already
Jackson, the junior from Belle Glade, Florida, has picked up 62 yards. He averaged 4.6 yards a carry during the regular season, had 782 yards rushing. Here he is again. Managed to evade the initial hit and fall forward for a couple of yards.
Jackson up the middle again.
Jackson played only 9 games. He missed 3 games with a right knee injury. He already ranks 5th in Miami career rushing with over 1,900 yards, and closing in on 2,000 yards with his performance today. And he has a decision to make, I guess, James.
And you know, because he's a 4th-year junior, and I think he looks at the success that Adrian James has, and they also have a guy by the name of Najee Davenport who won out the 1st game of the year, and he's due back next year, and he really would occupy the starting job.
Kelly appeared to be changing the play. It's a give to Jackson. And Jackson breaking into the secondary once more. Across midfield into Georgia Tech territory, where Chris Young, the strong safety, once again forced to make the tackle. Now, that's not unusual for Young, who was 2nd on the team in tackles with 89 during the season.
And what did Young tell us? He said when a running back has his shoulders square and he's heading upfield just like this, he said, you just try and make the tackle. You can't go for the big knockout blow then. But when that guy's coming off of another guy, maybe then you can go for a big cleanup tackle.
Young with a tackle of Miami's number 21. Why is that significant? Well, we found out yesterday Chris Young is from Blackjack, Georgia. He had 21 that time. Play action fake. Kelly's pass on target. Complete to Moss. Santana Moss using his blockers to the sideline and caught from behind at the 18-yard line once again by Chris Young. Andre King giving Moss a block after he made the catch in another Miami big play.
And you talk about Santana Moss, and he's one of those rare players that you kind of hold your breath when he gets the ball. And if you're standing watching it from the sideline or you're sitting in the stands, because you know that the best happens after he gets the balls in his hands. 4.3 speed. He was the Big East 60-meter indoor champion. And watch it. Just comes out of those blocks, moves up the field. A guy who has a nice little shake and bake also.
From the 18-yard line, first down Miami. They lead Georgia Tech 7-0. I formation. McPartland is the fullback. And the handoff to Jackson. And Jackson stopped for a loss this time at the 20-yard line by Chris Edwards and Felipe Claybrooks.
And a nice job by Claybrooks reading the play. You know, he can feel that the offensive linemen are trying to stretch him as they try and get that play to go to the left, and he just goes along with them and slashes in front, gets his body in front of the runner. Claybrooks is a guy who had a big year in 98. They thought, well, it'd be a full-time player in 99, but you put all the other inexperience around him, 3 true freshmen starting it, and this Georgia Tech team has struggled defensively, but you know, they've actually held up their own end of the bargain with the turnovers and the block punt today.
Final seconds of the first quarter. In motion is King. Kelly's pass caught. Short gain on the play. King, who was in motion, made the catch in the flat and hit immediately by Chris Young, who's getting an early workout on that Georgia Tech defense.
Chris Young on the stop again.
Which Davis, he's looking at the clock. He's just going to let the first quarter wind down.
There's no more plays this quarter. We'll go to the other end. And that is the end of the first quarter in the Toyota Gator Bowl. It's been all Miami so far. They've been able to stifle that potent Georgia Tech offense. And the Canes, who came onto the field with a rush, have met their Yellow Jacket foes and lead Tech 7-0 after 1. Tom Hammond, James Lofton, Craig Sager ready to start the second quarter at the Gator Bowl. The first quarter belonged to Jackson, James Jackson.
And I got the calculator out. This guy, 11 carries, 71 yards. A lot of these yards are untouched. There you see him get bumped out of bounds. Here's another play right into the end zone, untouched. And at the rate he's going, that 216 yards by Floyd Little looks like it may be in jeopardy.
Well, this may indeed be Jacksonville before we're all finished. Third down play here for the Canes. 3rd and 7. The ball at the 15-yard line of Georgia Tech. Kelly from the gun. Short pass, crossing across the middle, and touchdown, Miami. Andre King. King crossing, picking off the pass, and untouched into the end zone. His 5th touchdown reception of the season.
We've talked about baseball and Kenny Kelly. Well, baseball and Andre King go together. King spent 4 years in the minors, actually 5 seasons, and then decided to come back to college. He's a 25-year-old junior, and they call him Uncle Andre and Grandpa Andre. And he met with his receiver coach, Curtis Johnson, and talked to the guys, and they said that, you know, Andre and I were born in the same year. It's not quite true.
And ironically, he was drafted by Atlanta for baseball, the home of the Georgia Institute of Technology. Crosland's extra point is good. And here's the touchdown pass.
And he gets big Bubba Franks running up the field, and Philman has to come under Bubba Franks, and Bubba Franks is a big enough guy that takes you about a day and a half to run around him. But, you know, these passes don't look tough to throw, but when you have a guy that wide open, you know that the end result is going to be 6 points. Throw that ball accurately. King never breaks stride. Kelly and King together. You know, that could be maybe a double play combination, but that time it's worth 6 points.
Kenny Kelly has hit 4 of his 6 passes here in the first half, 66 yards, and that touchdown, despite dislocating the index finger on his right hand in the first quarter.
You know, we were talking about Kenny Kelly earlier in his decision making. I asked Andre King about it, and Andre said, you know, when I got drafted, I gave myself 4 years. And I said, if I can't make it into the majors in 4 years, I'll have to make another decision. He's a business management major. You know, he didn't get as big a signing bonus as Kenny Kelly, but he's also going to school, and his schooling is being paid by the baseball trust, by Major League Baseball.
Roslin ready to kick off for Miami. And Des White, Kelly Campbell, the deep men for Georgia Tech. And that powerful Georgia Tech offense. Not time for them to get in gear. The Jackets have a chance to win the game. Taken by Campbell, and he's going to bring it out. He's across the 20 and just short of the 25-yard line where he's nudged out of bounds by James Lewis.
James Lewis ran him out of bounds.
So Hamilton and Tech will take over, and here's our Aflac trivia question. Joe Hamilton, as we know, finished second in the Heisman voting to Ron Dane. What Heisman winners played in the Gator Bowl?
There's more than one?
55th edition, yes. I'll tell you a little hint. There are 4 that have competed in the Gator Bowl, and the answer will come up a little later. Meanwhile, Georgia Tech looking for an answer to the Miami defense. Hamilton throws on first down, wide open. And the catch made. Andrzejewski, the tight end, was all alone. Edward Reed finally tracked him down, but it's a gain of about 14 yards, and it will be a Georgia Tech first down.
Tight ends fall into 2 categories. There are those who are great blockers and those who are great receivers. And Andrzejewski, I think, has good hands, but I wouldn't call him a great receiver. I saw him lumbering down the field that time. he blocks well, blocks in that option. He's not a Bubba Franks, but when you get that ball close to him, he's going to catch it, and he's going to make us pronounce that name.
6'2", 240. That was his 7th reception of the season. He only had 4 last season. First down play, spot the ball at the Tech 38. Handoff to Gregory, got nothing. In fact, lost on the play. The center of the Miami defense just collapsed him. Barreau was there, Lewis, Sweeney, Morgan. And they're going to mark him a loss of a couple.
You saw Des White come in motion. They faked the reverse to him. And Des White is a guy last year in this ball game was the co-MVP along with Hamilton. We haven't called his number yet, but he really does have to become a viable part of this offense if they're going to move down the field.
They look for him here on 2nd and 12. Hamilton's pass dropped. Kelly Campbell dropped it as Morgan and Webster were right there, but that's a pass that should be caught.
That's a pass that should be caught, and you know it's kind of tough. You weigh 170 pounds, you come across the middle, the short middle, where the big linebackers are, and for some reason the concentration wanes a little bit, and you start to look around and you see Dan Morgan, you see Nate Webster, and then you're sitting there on the ground, and then you hear their voices talking to you. He's going to hear voices all night if he doesn't start to catch those.
It's 3rd and 12. There'll be some teammates' voices in there as well. Hamilton's in the shotgun. Miami shows blitz. Here they come. Pass behind and incomplete. Flag down. Could be roughing the passer. It's back by Hamilton.
He got roughing on Nate Webster. And in the rule in college is a little more liberal, but not that liberal.
Roughing the passer.
These officials are from the Mountain West Conference.
15-yard penalty.
Bill McKay.
Automatic first down.
And you mentioned that they're from the Mountain West. I talked to Bill McKay before the game. And he's just glad that it's nice weather. In the Mountain West, you know, this time of year you get a little snow on the ground, a little chilly, but he's down here working on his tan today.
Well, there was the penalty on Webster, which bails out Georgia Tech. They were going to have to punt. Instead, the ball is advanced into Miami territory to the Kane 49-yard line. And that will go because of penalty as Tech's first 3rd down conversion. First down option, and the pitch to the tailback, Gregory. He's across the 45 down to the 44 where Webster hits him hard.
You know, Webster hit Gregory hard, and Dan Morgan hit Joe Hamilton hard. You see, getting away from the blocker there, squaring his shoulders, and we talked about Gregory running hard, collision back. That time Morgan Webster rather up for the collision. And here's Morgan working on Joe Hamilton. They're best friends. They act like it. They like to hit people together.
Yeah, they do. 2nd down and 6. Gregory cutting back. Got a couple of yards. I get the idea they're not going to be able to run on the center of that Miami defense much.
Yeah, but you know what? You still have to pound there, because that is really what sets up your play action passing. If you're running there, you're getting 3 and 4 yards. You also think that, you know, if they overplay it, you know, he has to go in the air, and that minute it goes in the air, his feet aren't on the ground, it slows him down a little bit. But there's a minute hole there. And when those holes are there, you have to take advantage of, because like I said, it's going to set up your play action passing later.
3rd and long. The Jackets trying to convert a 3rd down. And stop for a loss on the play. And a big loss at that. Hamilton took the snap, set off on the left side. Nothing there.
You know, I like putting the ball in Joe Hamilton's hands, but I like to give him more than one option. If he has the option to roll out of the pocket, look down the field first, as opposed to just running it, that gives him the double threat.
Edward Reed, a strong safety, making the play for Miami. As Dyke punts. Short punt, down by Tech at about the 26-yard line. So things not going well for Tech. Meanwhile, Miami looking good. The Canes leading Georgia Tech in the 2nd quarter of the Gator Bowl by 14.
The 2000 Toyota Gator Bowl is brought to you by HP, a company of inventors in Silicon Valley.
Some scenes from the University of Miami campus in Coral Gables. And Miami leading Georgia Tech 14-0 at the Gator Bowl. Well, our Aflac trivia question: how many Heisman winners have competed in the Gator Bowl? John David Crow, Texas A&M, was the first. Bear Bryant was the coach then, I believe. Pat Sullivan, the Heisman Trophy winner for Auburn. Earl Campbell, the great one from Texas. And George Rogers, the South Carolina Gamecocks. 4 Heisman winners have competed in the Gator Bowl. Miami takes over at its own 26-yard line, leading 14-0. Kelly, play action fake, and has a man wide open. Caught by Bubba Franks. Big Bubba lowers his head and booms to midfield. You don't want to get in front of Bubba when he's got a momentum going his way. Chris Young got him down, but paid the price.
Yeah, and Craig Sager talked about the fireworks. I think Chris Young thought that they were exploding when Bubba Franks put his head down to run over him. Bubba Franks, we talked about, the total package. NFL scouts are drooling over this guy. He's just a junior, and, you know, but I think about the tight ends in the NFL. There aren't a lot of great tight ends out there, and this guy has the size, the speed, and the strength, but you still need to be a man when you play that tight end position. But his roommate last year, Edgerrin James, he's done pretty well in the pros this year.
I'd say going to be Rookie of the Year as Big Bubba rambles for 23 on that one. First down play, and a give to the tailback. Clinton Portis gets his first carry. He's the freshman from nearby Gainesville. And a freshman All-American by the Sporting News, top rusher for the Canes this season. His first carry of the Gator Bowl. Well, join NBC and 2-time Olympic gold medalist Katarina Witt next Saturday for an all-female, all-star skating extravaganza, Divas on Ice. In addition to Katarina, 1998 Olympic gold medalist Tara Lipinski, silver medalist Rosalind Sumners dazzle you as they skate to live performances by Grammy winner Monica and pop star Jessica Simpson. Divas on Ice next Saturday at 4 Eastern on NBC. 2nd and 8 for the Canes. Portis again gets the call with about the same result, 2 or 3 yards. Tavares Tillman from his corner spot makes the tackle of the freshman Portis. Had 6 starts as a true freshman and rushed for 100 yards or more in 5 of those 6 starts. In fact, set the Miami freshman rushing record with 838 yards. Third down and 5 for Miami. Tech in desperate need of a defensive stop, trailing 14-0. Kelly, short drop, pass over the head of his intended receiver, King. King had inside position and enough yardage for the first down, but Kelly's pass sailed over his head, incomplete, and the Hurricanes will punt.
You know, one of the things you watch Kenny Kelly, I watched him Thursday at practice. Very strong arm, almost too strong at times. There's no crown on this field, relatively flat field. That should be an easy pitch and catch for him.
Freddie Capshaw punting. Marvius Hester is the Tech receiver, calls for the fair catch and takes it about the 14-yard line. Well, the Tech fans are waiting for that Jacket offense to explode. So far, they're pitching a shutout. It's 14-0 Miami. Miami blanking the powerful offense of Georgia Tech and Ralph Friedgen so far in the game.
He's scanning that play sheet. He's got hundreds of combinations between plays and formations. He's got to try and find something that's going to work for him.
Miami's defense ranked 12th in the nation in scoring defense. They look every bit of that today. Well, Ralph might want to cross that one off the list as they try the center of the defense again and get nothing. In fact, a loss as Gregory meets a stone wall of Hurricane defenders.
Yeah, he's got a big guy over there at right tackle in John Carmen, but he's getting out quick right now. William Joseph is coming off that ball and getting across the line of scrimmage before Carmen can get started.
On second down, Hamilton fakes, rolls, fires, dropped. And Rajewski, that may be why he doesn't get many balls thrown his way.
And you know what, when you get behind and you're struggling, things start to add up. You had the drop by Gregory earlier and subsequently missed a long field goal. Here you have a chance to get in a decent third down situation, maybe a 3rd and 3 or 4. And now you're at 3rd and 10 and a ball that just goes in and out of his hands. You know, have to make those plays.
3rd and long for the Jackets. They've struggled on 3rd down today. The only conversion coming by way of a Miami penalty. Hamilton changing the play in the shotgun. Flags will stop that one. That usually means movement on the offensive front.
Prior to the snap, false start, offense, 5-yard penalty, remains 3rd down.
Update you on some other bowl games there, with Georgia leading Purdue in a SEC Big Ten matchup. Gators and the Spartans are scoreless. Hamilton with plenty of time. Pass short. Short hop the intended receiver. And another bad series for Georgia Tech. This looks anything like the team that led the nation in total offense.
Yeah, but you look at Butch Davis on his side, congratulating his guys. He and Greg Schiano, if 3rd and 10 is tough, 3rd and 15 is even tougher. And talk to Georgia Lear, that is the best part of Miami's defense. 3rd and long, they come after you, they make you throw hot.
Dyke has already had one block today, his first block of the season. They don't rush him that time, and Santana Moss has to run up under this one high, but not long. And now tries to get behind the wall. Moss to the 45, Moss to the 40, down the sideline, and his momentum just carried him out of bounds. Just touched by Jeremy Myers, who was able to force Santana Moss out of bounds, or he was off to the end zone. 9-yard return of a 33-yard punt. It's been all Miami so far in the 55th Toyota Gator Bowl.
Greg Sager back in Jacksonville. Miami leading Georgia Tech 14-0. The Hurricane offensive line has incorporated unique training methods into its preseason conditioning program. Center Ty Wise designed a 4-foot-high cage in which the linemen practice on keeping their leverage and staying low to the ground. Then to top things off, every Saturday, they take turns pushing Wise's Ford Ranger pickup the length of a football field in a timed race. They would progressively add weight to the truck by having teammates sit in the back. And right now, they are pushing the Georgia Tech defense around 14-0. Huh?
The reason they push that thing, because they don't have money for gas. They save the money for the all-you-can-eat buffet.
Yeah, that's the trouble, though. After all that work, they went to the all-you-can-eat buffet and undid all the good work. James Jackson stopped by the Tech defense, led by Andy Josephson. Ty Wise, all-Big East performer and a 3-year starter for the Canes, and hoping that he'll have a better truck than that 93 Ford Ranger they were pushing next year as he hopes to play in the NFL. He's going to be in the East-West Shrine game, do the Hula Bowl, and has played with broken ribs, a herniated disc. He's a tough guy. Ty Wise, senior from Pensacola. Second down and 14 after Jackson lost on the first down carry. Play action fake. Ken Dorsey at quarterback, and a mix up his receivers. That one not even close. Reggie Wayne. Closest to it.
And you know, it's funny, you think of receivers having to adjust to different quarterbacks. And Ty Wise, you know, he has to snap to two different guys. One guy who's, you know, about 6'2", the other guy who's 6'5". He said that the one thing about him, you know, the cadences are a little different, but neither one of the guys is a rah-rah guy. They just come in, they do the job. You know, he said the first time they looked at Ken Dorsey in the huddle, you know, they looked at that fresh face and said, you know, is he old enough to lead us? But Dorsey said, you know, that was the one thing I wanted to do. I wanted to get the players' respect, and he earned that in those 3 ball games he started.
So the freshman phenom Dorsey, as you saw, 0 for 4, looking for his first completion here on 3rd and long. Pressure, sets up a screen pass, but that play is whistled dead. And then another penalty flag down, and it'll be a personal foul against apparently Clay Brooks of Georgia Tech after the play had been whistled dead.
And you got Greg Gathers down, the freshman defensive end. You know, that play, I mean, it was whistled dead late. Clay Brooks is after Dorsey, and I couldn't tell if it was really that much of a late hit. You saw Dorsey deliver what would have been the screen pass to James Jackson, and then you see Dorsey getting up off the ground.
That's a pretty tough, well, maybe the throwing down is what they call it, as the personal foul, and that's legit. But tough to hear that whistle because it was delay of game. And there's Gathers at the bottom of that.
And almost looks like their face mask got tangled up there for a minute, but that wouldn't have kept Gathers down afterwards. And here you see the mark off against Georgia Tech, and you know, you just look at the little things that they've done wrong in this ball game. They had the interception, they had the block punt, and all those things where when you don't create turnovers, it also allows Miami to operate on a short field. Here they would have had them in a nice 3rd down situation. Miami ends up 1st and 10 on their own 27-yard line.
That's a pretty bonehead play by Clay Brooks, an academic All-ACC. Jackson dodging tacklers and spinning to the 22-yard line. Jamar Clark finally gets him down for good there.
You know, you look at good running backs in college and guys who have exceptional lines. Here Jackson, he has to make a move, makes that one move in the hole. Then he makes a guy who's a good tackler, Chris Young, miss in the open field. So, you know, I mean, this guy has some elements, but I think the biggest concern for him is playing time and how much of it he would get next year if he returns.
Second down, Dorsey's pass, incomplete, intended for Bubba Franks. Ross Mitchell, the linebacker, defending him. And Dorsey still has not completed a pass.
Now, what did Bubba Franks tell us about Dorsey? He said Dorsey has a little more touch on his ball. Kenny Kelly has a little more zip. And, you know, I think Bubba thinks that Kenny Kelly actually is a pitcher because he said he throws that ball hard and then it starts to curve. And I didn't want to tell him he was an outfielder because Bubba outweighs me by about 60 or 70 pounds.
Dorsey's 0 for 5. Kelly is 5 of 8 in a touchdown today.
And Butch Davis said he played the guy who has the hot hand. I think the guy with the hot hand and the bad finger is on the sideline.
3rd and 6 for Dorsey. Short drop, wings it out to the sideline.
Now we got movement.
And that play will not count. Once again wiped out as Reggie Wayne made what would have been a touchdown reception.
Prior to the snap, full start, offense, 5-yard penalty, remains 3rd down.
And even if I'm the defensive back and I hear that whistle blow, I don't think I let the wide receiver run past me.
Nope.
Into the end zone, catch a touchdown.
Penalties fairly even. That last one against Miami, though, nullified what could have been a score. Instead, makes it 3rd and 11. Dorsey rolling with protection. It breaks down, and as he fires it, it comes up short for Moss. Santana Moss on the sideline, pass short as Claybrooks once again was bearing down on Dorsey. Had time initially, and then Claybrooks able to break through and put on the pressure.
And Claybrooks has been a force. You know, granted, he gave him the first down, a new set of downs, but he breaks free, and it gets that right on. And I always think that a quarterback is going to hurt his shoulder, or his AC or rotator cuff, or whatever's up there. He's going to hurt his arm when he gets hit like that.
Carson will attempt a 46-yard field goal. It's a fake. It's a fake. Popovich, the holder, with the carry, and will be stopped short of the first down. Chris Young, the strong safety, able to make the defensive play, and Tech ready for the fake. And they will take over on downs. Popovich took off with the ball, the holder, but Tech was ready.
And I like the fake because it really is at that outside range. Crossland hasn't been great kicking field goals, and Butch Davis didn't want to give away field position there. And actually, even though they don't get the ball, you know, to a first down, they still make Georgia Tech gain a couple more yards in their attempt to get on the scoreboard.
Jackets start from their own 23-yard line, trailing 14-0 with 7:38 left till halftime. Hamilton on first down, a pass caught. Des White's first reception of the game, immediately hit by Mike Rump. 9-yard gain on White's first catch.
You know, we talked about Des White and Kelly Campbell. Des White, last year's MVP, 6'1". He's listed at 219 pounds. And I always see a figure like that, and I'm kind of suspicious. When I went out to practice Thursday, this guy's well put together. He said, well, 219 is the most I've ever weighed. I only weigh about 216 right now.
From nearby Orange Park, Florida, in fact, went to the Bowl School, the practice field where the Yellow Jackets worked out prior to the Gator Bowl. Webster and Blade stopping Gregory on that carry.
You know, we've seen a lot of two wide receiver sets, and part of that reason might be Kerry Watkins, number 9, last regular season game of the year against Georgia. He gets into a scuffle with a big defensive lineman, and he's actually suspended for the first half of play in this ballgame, so he won't be available until the second half.
Georgia Tech able to pick up the first down. Here's the option, and the pitch, fumble, and the ball's loose. Gregory fumbled the pitch.
And I want to say Joe Hamilton got back on it.
It is indeed the quick Joe Hamilton able to recover the fumble. William Joseph knocked the ball free.
You know, that doesn't go down as a big play. You know, it goes down as a fumble, and then you see the fumble recovery by Joe Hamilton. But that play right there keeps a quick scoring opportunity away from Miami. Now, talked about 2nd and long and 3rd and long. That is when Miami's at its best, because what it does, likes to blitz, make you throw hot. When you throw hot, you usually can beat a 5 or 6 yard route. They don't want to just sit back there and let them throw deep.
George O'Leary say he wanted Hamilton to go out the way he deserved for the win, and that pass high and incomplete, and Georgia Tech just is flat in this first half. Their offense is not sharp, dropping the ball, dropping passes off target, fumbled on the pitch, which was right in his hands. They just are not sharp and ready to play to open this game.
And you can see the frustration level on George O'Leary's face. So the one thing about Joe Hamilton is this guy's a competitor. So it doesn't matter what it is. That's his chief component, the thing that really separates him from the normal quarterbacks. He likes to compete. He's went over his head today so far.
3rd down and 16. That lone conversion was a result of a penalty. Hamilton can't get it done that way. Back to the line of scrimmage, and then a late flag comes in.
Justifiably, too. He's on the ground, and he comes in with the helmet and the shoulder pads and kind of giving him a little extra forearm. It's a dead ball foul. That'll be 15 yards. Now, if it's a dead ball, they'll mark off 15 yards, and it should be about 4th and 1 from up here. see Joe Hamilton stumbling. He's all the way on the ground, and Popovich, the guy who ran the fake field goal, is the guy who comes in late.
The 3-time district academic All-American.
You know what? But the guys are out of school right now.
I guess so.
Vacation, so they leave the books behind and all the. But you know what? It's emotion. You know, we had Playbrooks on the other side, who's all academic. Popovich, guys get emotion. They want to get into it.
Well, for the second time, Miami has given Georgia Tech a third down conversion by penalty. Wilder, the fullback, carrying tacklers with him close to the first down. Campbell and Morgan on for the ride until they finally were able to get Wilder down right at the first down marker.
You got to remember, with 5 minutes left in the first half, that this is an offense that averaged 40 points a game, 500 yards total offense, and eventually they're going to get untracked. And we talked about them trying to jam the ball up the middle. The reason you do that is to eventually slow down that quick pass rush by the defensive ends and the defensive tackles. And you know, there's always a master plan. You looked at that big play sheet, and you got to kind of try and piece it together. You think that when the ball game first starts, that we're going to go click, click, boom, boom, go down the field. When that doesn't happen, you have to scan and say, okay, what's going to work?
They'll measure for the first down, and it will be just short. Nope. Check that. First down by inches. I thought he held his thumb and forefinger up a few inches away, and I guess he was just measuring how much it had made it by.
Look at their offensive numbers, 508.4 yards per game. Down number 5 is Stanford. Who went to Stanford up in the booth here?
Stanford. They play football at Stanford?
Oh, man, they may be in over their head in the Rose Bowl. If they can hold Ron Dane to under 500 yards rushing, they got a chance.
500, huh? Big Ron Dane. This is the 75th anniversary of the Four Horsemen in Notre Dame beating Stanford in the Rose Bowl. Hamilton on the option, a couple of yards. Joe has rushed for 19 yards, passed for 63 today as Miami has held him in check. Matt Walters made the tackle for Miami. Clock ticking toward the 5-minute mark. And the Tech offense has done not much today. 14-0, the Hurricanes. They opened the game by driving 67 yards for the opening score. And they have a 173 to 151 total yardage lead, but 14-0 on the scoreboard. Hamilton's play action fake, and his pass caught just short of the 30-yard line. Diving catch made by Des White. Pass was a little short, the ball a little short, but White went down to get it with Leonard Myers covering for Miami.
And Des White, we talked about his size, 6'1", 216 pounds. And this guy has speed. He has size. He has everything that you're looking for. And you're thinking about guys at the next level, but he just drives Myers off and actually turns Myers around. You see that little break to the inside, ball's low, he goes down, gets his hands under the ball and comes up with a catch and show that ball to the officials.
Tech showing a bit of a spark. Here's Hamilton on a first down pass, and again the receiver wide open. Des White again ducking out of bounds. They're going to mark him out of bounds back upfield at about the 17-yard line.
You know, one-on-one matchups are what you kind of look for, and you're looking for a guy who can get open for you. See, Myers is giving too much room to the outside. He lets Des White just work down, turn around. Even when you play zone defense, you have to use man-to-man techniques. You stay low, you stay in your back pedal. You don't give the quarterback a guy to throw to who's wide open.
Tech with a first down, Miami 17. Option play. Hamilton keeps to the 10, 5, touchdown, Joe Hamilton. Seventh rushing touchdown of the season for Joe Hamilton. And the Tech faithful breathe a sigh of relief as their offense finally comes to life. I think Craig Sager told us they were awakened by the fireworks in Jacksonville last night and just now waking up here in the latter stages of the first half. Monge's extra point is up and through, and Georgia Tech with 4:12 left till halftime finally has scored.
But you pound the middle, everyone collapses in the middle. Joe Hamilton appears out of the pile, and magically they have 7 points on the scoreboard.
And they have cut the Miami lead in half at the Gator Bowl.
Mike Sager back in Jacksonville with the nation's #1 offense has finally come alive. But this match of teams and offense is no comparison to the one in 1916. The most lopsided game of all time. Georgia Tech lit up the scoreboard for 222 points. Now the Georgia Tech baseball team had been beaten by Cumberland 22-0. And Tech coach John Heisman was building a national force, howled for revenge. He got it. There were no punts in the game, but he was so upset with the lack of competition. After the game, he blew his whistle and put Georgia Tech through a grueling half-hour scrimmage. Tom?
Ouch. 222-0, and then you got to go and practice. Not a first down in that game. 32 touchdowns. They even shortened the quarters. They only played about 45 minutes. After 3 quarters, it was 180-0.
At least they didn't have to watch film back there.
Kickoff, bounce, taken by Aaron Moser. Moser upended at the 20-yard line. Beautiful special teams coverage by Georgia Tech. That was Kelly Rhino that made the form tackle after a 12-yard return.
They say he's the smallest guy on the team, but one of the biggest hitters, special team guy, and got a nice lineage for playing for Georgia Tech, doesn't he?
And Dorsey will return at quarterback, which is kind of a surprise, James, don't you think? Here's that Rhino hit.
Yeah, and Rhino's dad was there 3-time All-American at defensive back, and grandfather played there. And I think he's making a couple of guys at home proud right now.
Jackson used his blockers well. Went across the 25 to about the 26 or 7-yard line. Miami has looked good, James, but you know, some missed opportunities. They've had the ball 4 times inside the 40 and gotten the 2 touchdowns, but they had a couple of other opportunities and didn't even get a field goal.
Yeah, they've looked good, but I'm surprised that Ken Dorsey's in the game, because we were told by Butch Davis, I'll play the guy with the hot hand. I said, the guy with the hot hand and the bad finger is Kenny Kelly. Ken Dorsey is yet to complete a pass.
Remember, Kelly dislocated his index finger on his right hand in the first quarter, and maybe it's begun to swell or bother him. On the draw play, Portis has some room. Portis is down the sideline. Portis to the 10, and Portis will score. Clinton Portis threatening the Gator Bowl record. 73 yards, a new Gator Bowl record. The freshman from Gainesville, with a sizable rooting section here from nearby Gainesville. 73 yards for the touchdown, a new Gator Bowl touchdown rushing record.
And George O'Leary, when he talked about his defense earlier in the season, said the problem is we're giving up so many yards because of missed tackles. And on that play, when we watch the replay, we'll count them up. Plenty of opportunities to bring down Portis, but Portis stays on his feet and then just outruns Felipe Claybrook.
And now Crosland for the extra point. Georgia Tech was supposed to be the quick strike offense, and as quickly as that, Miami comes right back with a score of their own, and the extra point is good. Clinton Portis, the freshman, electrifying the crowd with a 73-yard jaunt.
You know, we talked about the missed opportunities. There's one, he bounces off a tackle, misses one, that's 2 and 3, and then you'll see Claybrooks come in the picture, but there's no comparison between a guy who weighs 265 pounds and a guy who's a former high school track and field standout. And here you'll see it at regular speed. And for Clinton Portis, regular speed is 4.3 in the 40, and a little bit of cheering going on from the Cane faithful.
At Gainesville High School, Portis was on the state record 4x100-meter relay team and the state champion 4x400. And he shows the ability to break some tackles as well. Recruited by many schools as a defensive back, Miami promised him he could play running back, and he cast his lot with the Canes, and they have such great depth at running back. In fact, Garrett Payton, son of the great Walter Payton, is also a Miami running back who's been nursing a bit of an injury, but hoping to be able to play today. He said he's about 85%. And now wearing his dad, he started at number 32 and now has adopted his dad's number 34. So wow, just when it looked looked like Tech had gotten on track. Miami answers right back.
Well, the only thing, they might have left too much time on the clock for Joe Hamilton.
Crosland's kickoff taken into the end zone. Campbell comes out with it. Spins away from the first man and takes it to the sideline. Puts on another move, crosses the 20, hauled down at the 25-yard line by Philip Buchanan.
To the 25-yard line. Philip Buchanan runs him out of bounds.
So Joe Hamilton and the Tech offense back on the field. As we remind you, up next, join NBC and Tiger Woods for live coverage of the Williams World Challenge. Tune in as 12 of the best golfers in the world, including Tiger, Garcia, Duvall, and more, compete for $3.5 million in prize money. Tiger looks to pick up where he left off after that great 1999. The Williams World Challenge. That's live golf coming up next here on NBC.
Tiger said if he won, he'd donate that $1 million to his charity.
Hamilton keeping and netting a yard or two before he's wrapped up by Al Blades as we send it down to Craig Sager. Craig?
Miami starting tailback James Jackson on the sidelines with a sprained left ankle, having the ankle retaped. That is the only reason why Clinton Portis was in the game. But he obviously made the most of the opportunity.
Funny how well those ankles can get to when a guy runs 73 yards on your replacement.
Jackson thinking that was my 73. I needed those 73 yards.
Hamilton's pass is short and incomplete, intended for Des White. Leonard Myers defending on the play as Jackson gets his ankle taped. Is it just my imagination, or has Hamilton been short many times today?
Well, you know what he's doing? He's throwing off his back foot, and what that means is he's not stepping into the throw. He's just leaning backwards and just casually getting rid of the ball. When I watched him in practice Thursday, there was nothing casual about his motion or the way that he throws the football. That time, it's an easy throw. He sees the guy out there. He reads it early, but you still have to complete the motion, step forward, and through the throw.
There was nothing casual about his demeanor at practice either, was there?
No, not at all. He chewed out a couple guys when they didn't perform their task.
In fact, he told us he really hasn't had a chance to reflect on his great season, all that happened to him this year, because he was so intent on preparing for this final game. Glover makes the catch there and is spun down by Nate Webster short of the first down.
And that's a quick 3 and out. You see Butch Davis trying to get a timeout for the troops on the sideline. Greg Schiano, the defensive coordinator, and Butch Davis both in the frame there.
So Miami stops the clock at the 2:01 mark first half. Already leading 21-7. Another 3 and out for Georgia Tech after that last touchdown drive, but it looked like they found their rhythm.
And Joe Hamilton, you see him stepping into the throw there, but that throw a little low. That throw on the money to Des White, and Joe Hamilton maybe doing what he does best, running the option, getting into the end zone.
Of all the honors that he has received, the Davey O'Brien Award, ACC Player of the Year, being carried around Grant Field after they beat Georgia in their great rivalry game. He said of all the things, the trip to New York was the greatest when he was invited to the Heisman ceremony, and he said he saw many of the former Heisman winners who were in attendance and was just awed to be in their presence, and he said they were so nice to me. Well, Joe, you belong in that company. I think that one of the things he probably hasn't had a chance to reflect on yet is what a fabulous career he has had.
Yeah, he said one of the guys came up to him and said, "It's nice to meet you and a pleasure to meet you." And Joe said, you know, the guy, former Heisman Trophy winner, saying that to me, made me feel a little out of place, but he was right at home in the company of other great players.
Dan Dyke to punt. Santana Moss deep for Miami. And another attempt at a block. Miami blocked one of Dyke's punts already today as Moss makes a fair catch at the 29-yard line. And Dykes has struggled today. His 2 punts before that one averaging 11 yards. But that one was a good one as it covered 40 yards. Dykes, the 4-point engineering student who just recently switched his major, right?
Yeah, I asked him before the game. I said, you know, punting, aerospace, and engineering, does that help out? He said, well, actually, I changed my major to electrical engineering. I said, why? Class is tough? He said, no, more jobs in electrical engineering.
You know, you can do all the angles on that punting. If you're an engineer, you can get that just right. Kenny Kelly returns a quarterback now for Miami. He's in the shotgun on first down. Clock shows 1:54 second quarter. Kelly's pass complete, wide open. Catch made by Bubba Franks. Bubba some moves and a dive to the 45. And 46-yard line. Look, did you see those swivel hips on 260-pound Bubba Franks?
It is not fair. A guy that big who can shake that well. You know, he likens himself to basketball. He says, I'm a basketball player. He says, kind of like Penny Hardaway. I said, well, you wouldn't be Penny. You'd be Nickel.
And he has about an acre of turf on his face mask there after plowing it up with a dive. Kelly again with a hot hand, as you said. Second completion in a row. Andre King makes an 11-yard catch and another Miami first down in their 2-minute offense.
And they've got time. The clock will stop while the referees reset it and get the chains ready. Kenny Kelly operating this thing pretty smoothly.
First down carry, Jackson. Jackson follows his blocker, and he has 9 yards. And Miami just ripping off chunks of yardage through the air and on the ground at the moment against this beleaguered Tech defense, which has not gotten any help from its offense, unable to get a breather because the offense hasn't done anything.
Second and short.
Kelly from the shotgun. Another completion. Andre King. King trying to get some extra yardage, retreated a little bit, will be close to the first down marker. Jamar Clark on the tackle, but a flag down.
Like we had a late hit. You know, King is trying to struggle and get out of bounds, and looked like Chris Edwards came in and kind of came over the top.
Personal foul against the Jackets.
You know, when you're struggling to stop people, guys are trying to make plays. They're hustling. They're flying to the football. You see Jamar Clark has them. And actually, it's Tillman who comes over. I mean, not a big hit. That doesn't hurt him. But it's a call that the officials have to make.
Tavares Tillman, who was on the golf team at Toombs County High School.
I was impressed when I read it. But when I asked him about it, what did he say? He broke 100 once? Now, it must not have been a very good golf team if you can letter by breaking 100.
From Lyons, Georgia, which is in Vidalia onion country, where they grow the famous Vidalia onions. He said he doesn't eat them. And Sun America halftime reports. Hannah has an interview with Tiger Woods, and we'll bring you up to date on all the bowl games in progress on this first day of the year 2000. Still can't get used to that. The year 2000. 21-7 here. It's been all Miami. Tech with a brief spark a couple of moments ago, and then Miami reassuming command of the game. And Kenny Kelly has been ultra sharp on this drive, hitting all 3 of his pass attempts for 29 yards. As Butch Davis went to Ken Dorsey for a couple of series, puts Kelly back in and gets an immediate dividend.
Oh, it's funny. Kenny Kelly missed the last 3 regular season games of the year against Rutgers, Syracuse, and Temple, and Miami went on a scoring binge. They scored 155 points. I talked to a couple of the Georgia Tech players. Said we watched those ball games, and it was like we were watching highlight films. I mean, every play is a long run and a touchdown. And Kenny Kelly said, you know, I'm watching the team. I want the team to do well, but for the first time, I realized what it was like to not be part of a team. You know, granted, he's away when they're at spring practice, he's playing baseball, but he said watching that team, I think really sparked his fires and made him want to come back and prove that he could be the quarterback. He saw Ken Dorsey come in that stretch. Ken Dorsey had 9 touchdowns and only 1 interception. And I think that was a little extra motivation. You got Joe Hamilton on one side, and he said Najee Davenport, our all-star running back, who got hurt in the first game, and I finally knew how he felt.
Well, Kenny wouldn't be the first Kelly to excel at quarterback in Miami, would he?
I remember another guy, Jim Kelly.
Setting up the screen, and it wasn't there. Good penetration by Georgia Tech. James Jackson, the intended receiver, on the screen. And Kelly wisely threw it away.
You know, when you talk to Georgia Tech defensive staff, they said, you know, we want to come after this guy, but, you know, you don't know how mobile he is. He was out 3 weeks with a knee strain. He has knee braces on both knees for this ball game. And if Ted Roof comes after him, if he comes after this guy, you got to remember you got one-on-one matchups outside. And the strength of Georgia Tech may be the secondary, but if you can't get to the quarterback with your blitz, you're in trouble on the outside.
Ted Roof, the beleaguered Tech defensive coordinator, was a member during his playing days of that Tech Black Watch defense. Here's Santana Moss making the grab in the flat and taking it close to the first down. Jeremy Myers takes him out of bounds, stops the clock with 55 seconds. And let's see if he has enough for a first down. Officials take a good long look at it and will measure.
You get the replay there, you see, and that's a long throw. You talk about quarterbacks and what kind of arm strength they have. Kenny Kelly has the arm strength. Baseball outfielder, throw the ball from center field to home. And that's a nice throw, just throwing that deep side out to the wide side of the field. Measurement time, Tom. Short or long?
That one will be, I missed the last one. I need Paul McGuire here. He never misses, just short.
Just short. That one looks like it was the same as the last one. Now, you talked about Joe Hamilton kind of throwing off his back foot, not stepping into it. You see that back foot come up and go in the direction of the throw, and that ball, nice spiral. Santana Moss, you know, Moss was out of bounds before that.
He did have a toe on the sideline, it appeared.
That's the one good thing about not being a big guy. You don't have big feet, and the officials don't see them sometimes when they step on the side. You know, me with the size 13, I've been out of bounds at the 12 instead of the 9.
Well, it paid off for Moss that time, who has 2 catches, 39 yards in this first half. Just short, the ball at the 9-yard line of Georgia Tech on 3rd down. Kelly fakes the pass to Jackson and is sacked back at the 20-yard line. Greg Gathers, the freshman, had nothing of the fake and went ahead and stopped him for a loss. There's Gathers. George O'Leary, the Tech coach, was telling us he does bed check himself. He checks, and he went into Gathers' room before a big game, and the lights were out. Nobody was in the bed. There's the play by Gathers. He thought maybe that he was breaking curfew, and he looked up, and there was Gathers sitting in a chair in the dark room looking out the window, and he said, "Coach, I'm nervous." And O'Leary said, "Well, after you said that, I am too."
3 true freshmen starting on defense for Georgia Tech. It has been a year, and I think there's a little extra gray hair on George O'Leary because he's a defensive guy first. Granted, you look at the great offense that he's put together. He says, I knew what I wanted defensively, but offensively, I wanted to come in and have some flexibility and be able to do a lot of different things, and he's been able to do that with Georgia, with Joe Hamilton at quarterback. But when you look at the defense, a lot of young guys, freshmen and sophomores, they're going to get better. And you even look at their defensive staff. Roof is in his 2nd year as a coordinator. The rest of the defensive coaches are in their 1st year. So you got a lot of young pups over there. They're going to get better, but now they're going to have to find a new solution for the offense next year.
41 seconds left, as you see. 21-7 Miami with a field goal attempt upcoming. Remember, they faked the last one. It was a little longer, though. This one is 37 yards. Andy Crossland, 37-yard attempt. 47 is longest on the season, and this one is no good. Another miss for Crossland, his 2nd of the game, and it remains 21-7. So all that offense results in no points once again for Miami. They sure have had a lot of opportunities in this first half.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Crossland went straight for Butch Davis. Or I don't know if Butch Davis made a beeline for him, but normally when you kick a ball, you kind of swing through it, and it'll move as a left-footed kicker from left to right. That ball just stayed straight. He's trying to just baby it through the uprights on that time.
In O'Leary applause, there's been precious little for Georgia Tech to applaud in this first half.
I'd look for Des White here.
Hamilton's looking for some room. Dives back to the 20-yard line, back to the line of scrimmage.
Hamilton keeps it.
Matt Walters covered in there.
William Joseph on the stop for the game.
And Tech has called a timeout. 29 seconds left, despite the fact they're back on their own 20-yard line. Well, that's a measure of how much confidence they have in their offense. Most teams would be, at this point, willing to take a knee and try to regroup. Tech calls a timeout. Try to get something going.
I think they're looking for any spark possible. They want to just have something good happen before they go in at halftime. You had the big run by Miami once they had closed the gap to 14-7. And you're right, most teams would just, you know, collect their thoughts, go in at halftime, try and make the corrections and get back in the ball game. But with a guy like Joe Hamilton, you know that he can make the defense sweat a little bit here.
Hamilton lines up in the shotgun, 2nd and 10 from his own 20, trailing by 14. Beautiful sunny day at the Gator Bowl in Jacksonville. Hamilton fires to Des White, makes a catch at the 30, close to the first down marker. Leonard Myers defending him. Hamilton has his jersey tugged off his pads there. And Tech takes another timeout.
Check it, officials timeout.
And now they say official timeout.
First down, Jackets.
We got another measurement. This is going to set a record. 3 measurements in the first half. You're 1 for 1 right now. And looks like they decided it's a first down.
Didn't need to measure after all. Gave it a good close look. And the clock starts with 15, 14, and counting. They'll run it and get nothing to the 30. Well, now it's taking time and try to regroup. A few boos. Well,
so we've got 2 seconds.
2 seconds left, and Tech called another timeout. And now the boos grow in intensity.
Now, are those boos coming from Miami people who want
hard to tell.
Get a soft drink at halftime, or are they coming from Georgia Tech people who wanted more than just to run up the middle?
It was a strange call after calling timeout. And even stranger with 2 seconds left is to call another.
Well, I don't think the strangeness is going to end after that play.
So Friedgen and O'Leary, who designed this offense, it's predicated on the fact of not allowing the defense to make situational substitutions. Try to keep the pressure on them, not enable them to get their nickel and dime packages on, etc.
See number
Friedgen and O'Leary have been together 20 years or so. O'Leary, a Bobby Ross disciple. Both have coached in the NFL. So here we are with 2 seconds left and a 2nd and 10 from the Georgia Tech 30.
Well, the cornerbacks are 15 yards off their man. Get beat deep here, you're in big trouble.
Don't even go to the locker room. Hamilton throws it as far as he can, and it's tipped and out of bounds, and the first half comes to a close. Well, Hamilton and the Tech offense, save one brief spurt, have been held in check during this first half. At halftime, 21-7. Let's go to Craig Sager.
Well, Coach, the story of the first half, the disappointing showing by the nation's #1 offense. Why is the team so flat?
Well, I tell you, it's not flat. We're just not making plays on offense, and I think Joe has to play better as far as what his reads are and stuff. And defensively, I think we're putting them in some bad situations. But except for that last run there, they made some good stops. We just got to regroup on offense and start controlling some of the ball possession and start making some plays. Too many drops out here right now.
Thanks a lot. Lucky to be down, only 21-7. Let's go back to Tom.
All right, Craig. Joe Hamilton held in check, 36 yards rushing. He did have a touchdown, and 103 yards passing for the Georgia Tech All-American Joe Hamilton. Miami looking good. Jackson especially in that first half, and the Hurricanes have a 21-7 lead at intermission. Now we'll send you to the Sun America halftime report. Let's join Hannah Storm. Halftime at the Toyota Gator Bowl, Alltel Stadium in Jacksonville, Florida. Miami leading Georgia Tech 21-7. As the halftime activities continue here, and James Lofton, Tom Hammond with you. And James, I think we expected that Miami would probably be able to move the ball against the Georgia Tech defense. What we didn't expect was that Tech would get nothing done, really, save one drive offensively.
Yeah, we knew that Miami's defense was good coming in, but one of the areas that Georgia Tech has not done well in this ballgame is really getting yardage on first and second down in easy situations. You heard George O'Leary talk about we've had too many drop passes, and it really has been that simple because a drop here or there doesn't seem like a big thing, but when you're going up against a defense that has great defensive speed, they have really been able to counteract and neutralize Joe Hamilton.
Well, we know that as Joe Hamilton goes, so does the Tech offense, and as George O'Leary said in his interview with Craig Sager just before halftime, that Joe has not had a good first half.
Well, I think Ralph Friedgen in this second half, he's going to get Kerry Watkins back. We talked about Watkins, a guy who had a fight with a big lineman in the Georgia game, and he was suspended for the first half of this ball game. So Ralph Friedgen will look at it. He'll say, okay, we did a couple things well in the ball game, but I really want to get Watkins involved in this game because he's a guy who caught some passes. And also Des White. He was open on the short side of the field, one-on-one, had two easy passes. They were able to get him the football. And when they do that, I think they have a chance to move the football. You look at the stats there. Miami, they don't win in the time of possession, but the big key there is the turnovers, the 2 turnovers by Georgia Tech, and you also don't have the block punt in there.
The quarterback of the moment actually is not Joe Hamilton, but is Kenny Kelly of Miami.
And I think Kenny Kelly coming into this ball game said, you know, I'm a guy everybody's talking about, should I go football, should I go baseball? Well, today's the football day.
And he's made a good day of it so far, a good day for the Hurricanes in general. They lead Georgia Tech 21-7, getting ready for the second half at the Toyota Gator Bowl.
Miami leading 21-7. I'm with Coach Butch Davis. So far, the ability for you guys to shut down the nation's #1 offense has been key. How have you been able to do it?
Well, first of all, obviously, we've got some very talented kids on defense that can run well. And, you know, we've been able to put some pressure on Joe and make them have to throw under duress from time and gotten to taking him out a little bit on some of the option stuff. They got us down on the goal line, made a great play. They're talented. We know that they're a good second-half team. We're going to have to play well in the second half.
Kenny Kelly has been the more effective quarterback, but he dislocated the index finger in his throwing hand. How will you use your quarterbacks in the second half?
Well, still, we'll go back and we'll start the game with Kenny Kelly. You know, I think that Kenny Dorsey getting in the game came in when Kenny did go down and put us in the end zone the first time. We're just going to play the guys, keep doing like we've done, and rotate them a little bit. Kenny Kelly's doing a nice job, though.
All right, thanks a lot. Let's go back to Tom and James.
All right, Craig, thank you very much. There's a look at Ken Dorsey, the freshman quarterback who came in and struggled a little bit, but Kelly, despite that dislocated finger, you see the tape on his right index finger. Despite dislocating it early in the game, he was very effective. In fact, as you see, hit 9 of 13 for 127 yards, including the touchdown toss to Andre King.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. If Kenny Kelly's on the baseball mound, he has to pitch. Can't have that tape on his finger.
That's right, he cannot.
Get a little extra rotation on his curveball there.
And meanwhile, Georgia Tech, maybe if they have a secret weapon, maybe it's Kerry Watkins, who was ejected in the second half of their game against Georgia and was suspended for the first half of this game. In fact, Coach George O'Leary, to ensure that he didn't sort of slip into the game, hid his helmet from him.
It was funny because George O'Leary wasn't sure on the rules. Could he be on the sideline? Did he have to stay in the locker room? Well, he's on the sideline, and you're right. They said we're going to have to take his helmet, and we probably should take all the other helmets that might fit him and move those away from him.
So he's chomping at the bit, ready to go in the second half, which will be underway momentarily. Andy Crossland teeing it up for Miami. They will kick off to start the second half with Des White and Kelly Campbell, the deep men for Georgia Tech. 21-7 Miami as we start the third quarter in the Toyota Gator Bowl. This is Campbell. Kelly cuts back right into the Miami special teams coverage and is taken down at the 23-yard line. Jeff Popovich made the special teams tackle for the Canes. So Joe Hamilton held in relative check by the Miami defense. That's the only interception of his bowl career thus far. The Gator Bowl last year and the Carquest Bowl the year before that. Hamilton on first down, fakes to Gregory, rolls and delivers a pass complete. And it'll be a Tech first down as Russell Matvey, the backup tight end, catches only his 6th reception of the season and then is knocked out of bounds by Chris Campbell, but not until he had picked up a first down. Looks like George O'Leary and Ralph Friedge are going to try some new faces here.
Yeah, but you also talk about, scripting plays when the game begins, and I think George O'Leary and Ralph Friedge have a little script that they want to go on and some things that they want to look at for the start of the second half.
Option play. The give is to Ed Wilder, and the big fullback rambles for 8 yards at 255 pounds before the All-American linebacker Nate Webster makes the stop for Miami, and Tech showing the ability to move the ball here early in the third quarter.
And you heard what Butch Davis said. He said that Joe Hamilton got us on the option down near the goal line, so sure, when they went in at halftime, their conversation was option, watch Joe Hamilton. That time Wilder did crease up the middle, 9-yard gain.
5 carries, 27 yards for Wilder as Gregory gets the call here. And Sean Gregory breaking away, lowers his head and rams inside the 40-yard line. The Yellow Jackets come out with a little spark in their step to start the third quarter, and there's an injured Hurricane back upfield.
And that's Borio down. You see Sean Gregory, a guy who started the year off as a third-string running back and talked about him being a tough guy. Well, he makes the guy miss there. You can be tough, but you can make guys miss. It makes your work a lot easier.
Sophomore from Homewood, Illinois, Flossmoor High School. In fact, they won a state championship when he was a junior at Flossmoor. And he's got some speed, too, as they tend to burrow the injured Miami player. Gregory, we talked about the speed of some of the Miami backs. Gregory was 3 years the Illinois state champion at 100 and 200 meters.
Not bad. Get Michael Burrow on the left side of the frame, and you just see right there his own man cuts him down. If we can back it up and take a look at that one more time, it's not normally the offensive guys that'll hurt you. It's your own guys getting knocked into you. So he's going to try and get up and try and get off the field here. They may need some bigger guys than that if he can't get off on his own.
Michael Burrow, the senior from North Miami Beach, went to North Miami Beach High School, then spent a year at Northeast Mississippi Junior College before coming back to join the Hurricanes, as we mentioned earlier. Has a daughter, McCalla, born the day of the FSU game. And Kerry Watkins, number 9, the freshman receiver from La Crosse, Louisiana, who caught 33 balls in the regular season. Suspension lifted on the field for the Jackets. From the 39 of Miami, first down, Georgia Tech. The option again. And Hamilton can't get away. Al Blades wrapped him up early and would not let go. Blades, the second team All Big East selection, the junior from Plantation, Florida, made the play on the option.
The option is not that much different than throwing the ball down the field. This time, Joe Hamilton does not make the correct read. He has Gregory as his trail back, and he needs to get that ball out and pitch it to him. What he has to do, he has to read, is it Sky Force, which is the strong safety, or is it Corner Force? That time, it was Sky Force. That strong safety came up and got him. Get that ball out.
Hamilton faked the dive play, reverse pivot with the option. It got nothing, and this quarterback draw apparently gets nothing either as he's stopped at the line of scrimmage.
Miami will counter with their dime package. They'll have 6 defensive backs in the game for the next snap. Got Fitzgerald in there, Popovich. Those 2 extra guys come in and see what Ralph Friedgen has up his sleeve.
Burrow has a sprained ankle and should return for Miami. Good news for Hurricane fans. 3rd and 10 for Georgia Tech. Low snap. Hamilton picks it up and rifles it complete, but short of the first down to Kelly Campbell. Mike Rupp hit him immediately and made sure they would not be able to gain any further yardage.
Kelly Campbell's tough. I mean, he took a good lick there, and he got up talking. And I don't know if he knew what he was saying when he got up. But at least he got up and, because he talked about that. Is there any trash talking that goes on? Sure, those guys, when they're trash talk, a little bit And by just making that catch, they feel like they're out of field goal range. But now you get a manageable 4th down. You got 4th and 4. That's a lot better than a 4th and 10. You got a lot of options there. When you talk about options, that's the thing that worries Butch Davis and his defensive unit.
4th down and 3. And with the play clock ticking down, Joe Hamilton signals for a timeout. So Georgia Tech takes a timeout facing this 4th down attempted conversion here early in the second half. And O'Leary wants to know what went wrong as they take the timeout. They trail by 14.
The 2000 Toyota Gator Bowl is brought to you by Wendy's 99-cent Super Value Menu. It's there for you.
Familiar scenes of the Georgia Tech campus in Atlanta. When we were there for the '96 Olympics, we stayed in close proximity to the Tech campus. In fact, some of the athletes housing the Olympic Village converted to Georgia Tech dormitories when the Olympic Games were over.
You mentioned to me you found all the good eating and dining places, too. And see, there's a difference between eating and dining. Dining is what you do when you go out and you get silverware. Eating you do with your hands.
Chris Collinsworth and I had a lot of chili dogs at the varsity, I can tell you that. 4th down for Georgia Tech, 4th and 3. Critical play for the Jackets trying to get back in it, and it's complete for the 1st down. Gordon Clinkscale out of the backfield, makes the catch from Hamilton. Webster knocks him out of bounds, but on 4th down, O'Leary and the Jackets convert.
You know, Gordon Clinkscale heard that sermon about not dropping any balls. This time he's going to go in motion out the backfield and just leak out into the flat. He's going to be wide open, and watch him hesitate after he catches, because in practice he got hit. But no, he didn't get hit now. There's nobody there. I better get upfield and get some more yardage. There's O'Leary. O'Leary's going, yeah, I called that one. Good use of the timeout.
1st down at the Miami 14-yard line. Hamilton pitching. And out of bounds, Des White just around the 5-yard line.
Run out of bounds by Al Blades.
So on the pitch to Des White that time.
Yeah, and you know, Des White is a wide receiver by trade, so gets along this sideline and just try and cradle that ball in.
Spot the ball at the Miami 11. 2nd down and 7. Georgia Tech trails by 14, trying to change the momentum here early in the second half. Hand off to Gregory. Sean Gregory thrown back after he reached the 7-yard line.
Finds the middle of the Miami line for a couple. Dan Morgan in the Jacksonville.
Continues to be pretty tough going up the middle against the Miami defense.
And those are big guys up there. You look at Gregory, who is just a sophomore, a young kid, runs tough, runs hard, and there are times when you just like to be able to find the ground. They won't even let you get down on the ground.
Spot the ball at the 8. That makes it 3rd and 4 for Georgia Tech. Wilder lined up at a wing back to the bottom of the screen. And the pass by Hamilton is low and no good, incomplete. Short hop, Des White. He thought he caught it. But it reached the ground before it got to White, and it'll be 4th down.
And that's a tough one, because Des White is thinking touchdown. If he just gets enough yardage to get the 1st down, this ball won't hit the ground. I mean, it's there. It's there. That's a catchable ball. Joe Hamilton throws that ball the only place possible, and Des White just can't get his hands under to make the catch.
Monje attempts the field goal. A 26-yard boot. That is good. So Georgia Tech takes the second half kickoff. They convert a 4th down, but have to settle for the field goal. A 25-yarder officially. That makes it 21-10, Miami. With our producer Kevin Smolin, director Kelly Atkinson, Tom Hammond, James Lofton, Craig Sager, Alltel Stadium, Jacksonville, Florida, the Toyota Gator Bowl. We're in the 3rd quarter, 10:21 left. Miami leading Georgia Tech 21-10. Monjay to kick off for Georgia Tech with Moss and Mosier, the deep men. Into the end zone. Moss takes it on the fly. Cuts back to the 25. Flag down. Moss is off to the races. One man to beat. Cuts back using his blocker well. He'll take it to the end zone for the touchdown, but there's a flag back upfield. Moss had a couple of punt return for touchdowns this year. This one a kickoff return if it stands.
Tom, I don't care if the flag does bring this back. This kid has some electricity. When he got it out in the open field, two guys in front of him, the ability to set them up, but maneuver, weave them in and out, make them go the opposite direction that he wanted to go. I mean, that's vision, that's field presence. You know, he's probably out of breath now, too.
Yeah, he had the defenders spinning like tops down there. He had them going every which way. But as you saw, it will be wiped out by a holding call against the Hurricanes.
And there you see it. You see the hold and the little takedown. Get that hand in the back. Guy can't get away. Not a big hold, but, you know, just enough, and it's right at the point of attack. If that's away from the ball and away from where the runner is, maybe that doesn't get called. But a good call by the officials.
So Miami takes over with a first down at its own 17, wiping out the Moss touchdown run. Kelly at quarterback makes the play action fake. His pass drops a little high and off the hands of Bubba Franks.
Kelly's pass intended for Daniel Franks. Chris Edwards on the coverage for the Texans.
It'll be 2nd and 10 coming up for Miami. Trying to regroup emotionally now from having that long touchdown run wiped out. Formation behind Kenny Kelly. Kelly retreats to pass, being chased by the Tech defenders, throws it. There were two men right together, off the hand of Fulcher and incomplete. Sands was out there too, and that couldn't be right, James. They had two receivers within 3 feet of each other.
Yeah, but the thing that Georgia Tech is doing right here is you come after the quarterback. Kenny Kelly, great athlete, good mobility, fast, can run, but still likens himself as a pocket passer. And if a guy wants to stay in the pocket, you bring people from the outside, you force him to throw when he's not ready. That time it would have been an easy completion. You had guys running wide open, but you also had enough pressure on the quarterback to cause an inaccurate throw.
3rd and 10. One of the things Miami has not done well today is convert third downs. Kelly pumped once, let it go, and way long over the head of Moss, who was closest to it. And thanks to the penalty on the kickoff return, Georgia Tech will get the ball back as the defense forces Miami to go 3 and out.
And the biggest series for Georgia Tech all game long, the offense struggling, a defense that comes into the game as one of the most beleaguered defenses in the nation, and a 3 and out against a very good Miami team.
Hester awaits the Capshaw punt. Capshaw spins it toward Hester, who fields it at the 42. Was hit hard and dropped at the 45-yard line. Nick Ward made a beautiful tackle on special teams after the punt covered 41 yards. And thanks to Ward's hit, only 2 on the return. But Tech gets the ball back, trying for some more offense. They still trail Miami 21-10.
So you think you want to return punts, huh, Tom? You know, it's one thing to watch out for the Miami guys, but when your own teammates start getting in on the action, you're in big trouble. And Marvius Hester is on the sideline. See that wrist, and the medical staff is taking a look at. He's holding his wrist, but I think it's actually his shoulder. that's hurting them, because they've gone up under those pads and they're looking at that pad area, and when you don't expect to get hit, that's when you get hurt the most.
But good field position for the Yellow Jackets. They start from their own 45. Option play, and Hamilton with daylight. Joe Hamilton puts on a move and is taken down just short of the 40-yard line by Edward Reed. Good job by Reed. He was about the last man that had a shot at Hamilton. And meanwhile, back upfield, Ed Wilder is injured.
Yeah, but nice form tackle down the field by Edward Reed. But this time they decide, okay, we're going to get the pitch man, and we're going to get the dive back. We're going to forget about Joe Hamilton. That's what it looked like to me, and forget about it about 15 yards later.
There's Wilder, the injured Yellow Jacket, who had surgery midway through the season, missed a game with his knee being scoped.
Yeah, you talk about tough. Misses one game, has that knee scoped, and he hadn't been healthy all year. And you talk to O'Leary, he said, here's a guy who's maybe 50% coming into this ball game, and has really been one of the workhorses in the running game, because not only is he carrying the ball, but he's taking a pounding every time he goes up there. And you can see the brace on the right knee. He's favoring that leg a little bit. So those things don't heal up. You go in, you get it done, and you just gut your way through the rest of the season.
Meanwhile, Joe Hamilton showing signs of getting untracked. He rambled for that first down. He's rushed for 49 yards now, passed for 145. 40 of those on the last Georgia Tech drive when he hit 3 of 4. Hamilton given time. Down the sideline, Des White. And a flag comes down as he collided with Chris Campbell, who was covering. It was actually Sean Gregory, 32, not 22. And the penalty coming up against Miami.
That was the almost take your pick play, because you had the play action fake in the backfield. He fakes to Gary Johnson, number 86, who just came in the ballgame. He has his wide receiver open on the right side. He decides, I'm going to gamble. I'm going to go for the big strike down the field. You see him look right, then he comes back to the left, tries to fit in there, and you see Chris Campbell just trying to catch up. The ball actually hits him in the back about the same time that he collides with Gregory. Get another look at it. There's the play action. Joe Hamilton quickly comes back to his left. See, he knows what he wants when he lines up. And he figures, I'm going to get Gregory. But that time, pretty good coverage by Campbell. In the official's opinion, a little too good of coverage.
So Hamilton and company now with the ball at the 27-yard line of Miami. First down. Hamilton ducks under. Makes it to the 24-yard line. Covered there by Marquise Fitzgerald. Gain of a couple.
And you can kind of sense that Joe Hamilton now has Miami where he wants them. Down by 11 points, but he has them on their heels. They are reacting to him. They're not dictating the game. No longer is the game being played on the other side of the line of scrimmage in the backfield for Georgia Tech.
Hamilton swings it to Gregory, hit immediately and dropped by Dan Morgan. Morgan smelled that one coming and was all over him in a heartbeat. Let's go down to Craig.
Well, Ed Wilder, the fullback, the best blocker on the team, is back on his feet. He wants to go back in. That knee problem is a chronic problem from high school when he tore his ACL. And then, as you mentioned, he had the arthroscopic surgery in October. But he says he wants to go back in, and obviously they need his blocking. Huh?
All right, Craig, there is Wilder trying to walk it off. His replacement is a freshman, Gary Johnson from LaGrange. You mentioned, James, that he was in there briefly and comes out in passing situations. Johnson has not carried the ball this season.
And Johnson was a linebacker when the season started.
3rd and 12.
Comes the blitz.
Low snap, blitz, and a flag down once again. Late hits. The whistle had blown, blowing the ball dead. And Miami kept coming.
That's 1 against Georgia Tech and 2 against Miami, and huge plays. I mean, this bails Georgia Tech out of what would have been a 3rd and 18, because they were the ones who had moved initially.
They had delay of game. And then with the whistles blowing to stop the play, Miami kept coming.
And, that snap from the shotgun from Noah King has been at Joe Hamilton's ankles time and time again, and Joe Hamilton takes one in the back for the team. You know, that's like being a baseball player and standing in there letting that ball hit you. But
well, Hamilton has stopped, obviously.
Yeah, and he's motionless. And motionless and defenseless, and that's the reason for it.
Nate Webster nailed him.
And you hear the whistles. The whistles at the beginning of the snap.
Personal foul, unnecessary roughness on the defense, 15-yard penalty, automatic first down.
And it's not a matter of the distance, but that unnecessary roughness penalty is a automatic first down.
Damian Lewis, the offender for Miami, and as you saw the graphic, the third time today that Miami has helped Georgia Tech convert a third down with a penalty.
And you know, talk about teams being off and being rusty. Well, you figure they've been off for about a month. They haven't really heard whistles at practice. You know, you hear whistles in the game all the time, and you get used to pulling off, pulling back, but you don't hear them in practice. And in practice, they're going against the scout team guys, and they're just killing those guys.
Saw Georgia Tech's production inside the red zone. They're at the 19 here. Here's the reverse. Campbell, nowhere to go. Stopped back at the 23-yard line by Leonard Myers.
Yeah, but Campbell had it to the outside. John Myers, number 7, had made the block, had picked it up. You run the reverse all the way to the boundary. You see the pitch, the misdirection. He cuts it up inside. You see number 7, Blades. He was blocked by number 7, John Myers, and they had the play there. Butch Davis, he's going, hey, he's coming, get over there. And then he's relieved because Campbell actually cuts it up. You run all the way to the boundary. You run wide to stay wide.
Loss of 5 at 2nd and 15. Pumps once, does Hamilton, and goes for the end zone. And the pass is incomplete, intended for Campbell, with Leonard Myers defending for Miami.
The pass intended for Kelly Campbell. Leonard Myers on the coverage. It's incomplete.
You know, he had both Watkins and Campbell on the same side. They're both running a stop and go. Watkins is in the slot in the middle, and it almost looked like Campbell was watching Watkins and said, well, he's the guy who's open. You ought to throw it to him. Throws the ball out late, and Campbell tries to turn on the jets, but not enough jets to get to the ball. And you see a little hand fighting there, just enough hand contact by Leonard Myers to break the stride of Kelly Campbell.
3rd down and 15. Formation here.
They got a blitz coming again.
Low snap picked up by Hamilton. His pass, his receiver fell down. His receiver had fallen, Des White at the 7-yard line. White looked to be open too. Lost his footing, went to the turf, and another field goal attempt coming up, which does not please the Georgia Tech coaching staff.
You know, Des White tried to make a double move, and you know, this turf here in Alltel Stadium where the Jacksonville Jaguars play on Sundays, it's tight, but it's a little loose in spots, and he hit one of the loose spots and just went straight down.
Pass ended up hitting the goalpost.
Well, you got to be able to jump 10 feet to get it.
Field goal attempt is blocked. That's been the trend, hasn't it, this bowl season? Special teams play so important. And that was Chris Campbell that blocked it for Miami.
Chris Campbell got in and blocked that one.
You saw earlier in the game on the 44-yarder that he missed, that you saw Michael Burrow break 3, and that time Campbell gets in, gets a hand on it. This ball comes out a little low also. And on a short kick, you got to get this thing up.
So Monjay unable to convert. So once again, we see Georgia Tech drive down the field and stall. Kicked a field goal on their first possession of the 3rd quarter, and then this one is blocked.
And that's 2 opportunities in the second half where you've come away with just 3 points. And in a ball game where you're really trying to catch up, you're trying to close the gap. You had some good things happen to you. You have a touchdown that gets called back. Your defense goes out. They play great. They have 3 and out, and you see the penetration. But that is a low kick. Got to pop that ball up quickly and get it over those hands.
Butch Davis says no good, and his team will take over at its own 24-yard line. Kelly at quarterback. changing the play.
The defense shifted left. He may go to his left.
He does with a handoff to Jackson. 3 yards for Jackson on first down. Stopped by Chris Young. Clock down to 6.5 minutes. Third quarter. It's 21-10 Miami.
This puts Georgia Tech's defense in an awfully unenviable state. You talk about emotions, and you've gone out, you've had the good series, you've turned the ball over, your team is ready to get some points on the scoreboard, and then they go flat, and now they have to go out and play defense.
James Jackson closing in on 100 yards, 15 carries for 80. Remember, he had 50 on the Canes' first drive of the game. Intercepted. Kelly's pass intercepted by Jamar Clark. Clark down the sideline, bumped out of bounds by Kelly. Intended for Santana Moss. And Clark right there. The ball came right to him, and he picked it off.
I talked to Jamar Clark after practice on Thursday. I said, hey, they got some pretty good receivers. He said, well, you know, I face good guys in practice every day. I said, you know, but they alternate guys. I said, that's almost unfair. He said, yeah, you know, maybe they should just stick with the same starters and I can hang with those guys. But he said, it's all about conditioning. I got to be ready to go when they're ready to go. And this is the first bad pass that Kenny Kelly has thrown. Ball is clearly behind his receiver. See his receiver breaking in there, Moss. And Moss almost looks like he doesn't have his eyes on the ball, because that's something he should have been able to stop, at least get a hand on.
Tech has had ample opportunities to get back in this game, see if they can capitalize on this turnover as Gregory spins his way to the 40-yard line.
And a turnover is something that has been very few and far between for this Georgia Tech defense. And, you know, when you talk to the offensive coordinator and offensive coaches from Miami, they said, we don't want to turn the ball over. We don't want to give these guys gifts. They haven't gotten them all year. We don't want to start in the new millennium.
Option play from that wishbone look, and the pitch. Gregory, Sean Gregory down the sideline, hit hard, knocked out of bounds at the 22 by Chris Campbell. Campbell whacked him hard, but a good game for Gregory and a Georgia Tech first down.
You talked about Gregory being a guy who had run 100 and 200 meters while he was in high school, and you see it a little bit here. You see he says, okay, I got ground in front of me, let me turn it on. And, you know, we talk about being a tough guy. I don't think he saw that guy.
No.
He didn't need to be tough there. He had all the yardage he's going to get. Sometimes it's better to step out of bounds.
16-yard gain, first down Tech. Option again. Hamilton keeps this time. Cuts up to the 16-yard line where he's covered by Rod Mack and Al Blades.
And very close to splitting Rod Mack and Al Blades. You know, I mean, they hesitated for a second. I said a couple of last series that kind of has them on their heels now. I mean, they are reacting to him. I mean, now is the time you stick it in the belly, pull it back, get that quick pop pass, get somebody in the end zone when that defense is being aggressive and coming up after you.
And Ed Wilder back in his customary fullback spot in the I formation in front of the tailback Gregory. He was shaken up on the last series. Option again. Hamilton keeps. They cut off the pitch. Well defensed by Miami. Edward Reed makes the stop. A loss of 2 on the play.
And if you're going to run the option, you have to decide early on. Joe Hamilton sees Wilder should make that block. He doesn't make the block. You know, here's a guy who talked his way back into the ball game. Can't turn and cut well enough to get Edward Reed. Yeah.
Wilder taken out of the game right now. So Gregory is the lone setback. 4 wide receivers in this formation on 3rd and 6.
The way they're kicking field goals, this is almost 2-down territory.
Nothing there on the handoff to Gregory. Damian Lewis stacked it up for Miami. So facing a 4th and 6, O'Leary elects to go for another field goal attempt. Last one was blocked.
You know, and we put it on the kicker, but you can't allow penetration from the offensive line.
Monje puts it on its way. 37-yard attempt. Good. So Georgia Tech converts the interception into 3 points. It narrows the gap. 3:21 left in the third. 21-13 Miami.
Well, Georgia end of November, and Miami's been off since the first week in December. But you know what? These two teams haven't forgotten how to hit. You know, they actually like to hit so much, sometimes they even hit a little bit after the whistle's blown. Ouch. I need a bag of ice.
My head hurts.
Man.
And it's not from Y2K celebrations either. Moss and Moser are awaiting Monjay's kickoff. Miami's been in action since last August, late August, I guess, for the kickoff classic game against Ohio State. Moser's return, and over on the sideline, the flags fly for another out-of-bounds hit. Reggie Wilcox knocking him out of bounds.
I mean, you had everything you wanted on that kick. You had kept the ball away from Santana Moss. You had a relatively short return out to the 21-yard line. You hit a guy who's not just on the sideline, he's almost on the opposite side of the white boundary. Yeah, we've seen that signal much too often
on
today.
Both sides.
Yeah.
Basquin, the man that was guilty of the penalty.
And it turns out where it's always the guys who are good in the classroom. I mean, Baskin on the academic honor roll for the ACC, and you know what? They should start taking points away from the grades. And then, you know, then the kids would really be scared.
Meanwhile, Miami sends Ken Dorsey back up under center. Dorsey at quarterback for Kelly. Moss in motion. Dorsey completes the pass, but for little or no gain. Stopped in his tracks was Reggie Wayne. Travaris Tillman was all over him.
You know, I asked Travaris Tillman about the position he plays because it's called boundary corner. Travaris Tillman had been a free safety. They needed help at corner, and so he moves to that boundary corner. He said that's really the physical side. He said that's where the short side, where you get involved in a lot of the tackles, and he has good size, and you know, he has that safety body, and he's playing corner, and I think the pros might want to look at a guy who's smart and team captain, does a lot of things right on the football field.
That was Ken Dorsey's first completion. It went for 0 yards. This one is going to be about the same.
Yeah, that's an improvement. That one went for 1 yard.
Sands made the catch, and Ross Mitchell hit him immediately. In fact, they might even give him 2.
And Georgia Tech for the first time. I just saw Chris Young there, number 33, kind of one of the defensive leaders, a strong safety, motioning to the crowd. Make some noise. We're doing something on defense here.
3rd and long. Clock down to 2 minutes left. 3rd quarter. Miami's up 21-13. Dorsey's pass is incomplete, intended for Jackson.
Chris Edwards on the coverage there. Chris Edwards, if he looks back, he might have a chance to intercept this, but Dorsey has a little bit of time. He looks downfield. There's good coverage down the field. Forced to step up in the pocket. See that ball thrown, and his receiver, James Jackson, had actually turned up the field.
To be so efficient offensively in the first half, Miami is completely stalled. Hester is injured, the normal punt returner, the only man that's returned a punt for Georgia Tech this season. So Glover is out there for Capshaw's punt. Will Glover retreats, tries to get to the outside, and has a pretty nice return around the 30-yard line. Rod Mack on special teams with a Miami tackle. 1 minute, 36 seconds left in the 3rd quarter as Georgia Tech will take over. 41-yard punt that time. Tomorrow, 4 Eastern, check out the Brian Boitano Holiday Skating Spectacular. Tune in as Brian, along with fellow Olympic gold medalists Kristi Yamaguchi and Oksana Bayul, hit the ice to celebrate this traditional time of the year and skate to live performances by John Tesh and R&B sensation Deborah Cox. That's the Brian Boitano Holiday Skating Spectacular tomorrow at 4 Eastern on NBC.
See, now guy skaters are nicer than girl skaters. Katarina Vick, they had the divas on ice where it's just women. Brian invited a couple of ladies to come and skate along with them, but who wants to see a bunch of guys skate?
Contact by the defense. Offside. 5-yard penalty. Remains first down.
Another penalty. The Y2K has hit both these teams in the penalty department.
You know, for For Miami, it's been a long season. This is their 13th game. They started in the Kickoff Classic way back in August. I mean, that was last year. I mean, that was last century.
By the way, to your comment
1,000 years ago.
To your comment about who wants to watch a bunch of guys skate, there are a lot.
But they invite some good-looking women to come skate with them.
A lot of females who control the clickers at home that like to watch those guys.
That's why we have more than one TV in my house.
William Joseph makes the tackle for Miami as the clock approaches a minute 15, and it'll be second down, 3 yards to go for Georgia Tech. All the momentum has been on Tech's side in this quarter, and yet they still trail. They've had 102 yards in the third quarter to only 5 for Miami. Tech is still down 8.
And Butch Davis is giving the official an earful because Tech had 12 guys in the huddle on that last play.
Handoff to Gregory, who slips and is marked down at the 35-yard line, covered by Matt Walters.
You can't do that. That's an unfair advantage. They have 12 guys out there. You get a low-angle look. You see Joe Hamilton handing that ball off. It looks like Gregory's just fine. And he's about to slip, and he gets assisted on the tackle there. So half that tackle should go to the defensive player, half to the turf.
John Myers, whose brother plays on defense for Georgia Tech, just brought the play in from the sideline. Hamilton in the shotgun on 3rd down and 5. And the catch made, but short of the first down. Kelly Campbell stumbling as he caught it, unable to get first down yardage. Looked like it would have been an easy first down pickup had he not lost his footing. And that play will bring a close to the third quarter at the Toyota Gator Bowl. At the end of 3, Miami leads 21-13, although Tech ruled in that third quarter. Back to the Toyota Gator Bowl right after these messages and a word from your local station. Start the fourth quarter at the Gator Bowl with Miami leading Georgia Tech 21-13. That score a good omen for the Hurricanes. When they begin the fourth quarter in front, they've won 129 of their last 131. But Georgia Tech dominated that third quarter, and the momentum seems to be in their favor. They're going for it now on 4th and 1. Tech goes for it on 4th and 1. Looks like they're trying to draw them offside, and Miami's not going to fall for it.
That motion man's going to get tired.
Yeah, he did a little tap dance down there behind Joe Hamilton.
Yeah, so Gary Johnson looked good, though.
The ruse did not work, and Georgia Tech will take the 5-yard penalty for delay of game and punt it away. But the Tech defense in that third quarter held Miami on 3 possessions to 3 and out, interception, and 3 and out. Dan Dyke will punt for the Techsters.
For the first time in the ball game, he's punted into a little breeze now, too.
Santana Moss, the dangerous one, awaits the boot at his own 20. Low kick and short. Bounces and takes a Miami bounce. It'll be marked out of bounds about the 36-yard line. Moss didn't get a chance to return that one, but nevertheless, good field position for the Canes, who've been unable to do anything with the ball here in the third quarter as they have their first possession of the fourth upcoming. And so far, Miami has taken the lead from the outset and held on. Our Beck's storyline: Portis and Jackson, the Miami running backs, 167 combined rushing yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, that 73-yarder.
Had 50 yards on the first drive and a 73-yarder for Portis. Miami's defense, 3 late hits have enabled Georgia Tech to convert 3 third downs, and Hamilton had a rough start and starting to find his legs. Here's Portis. And Portis, who ripped off that 73-yarder earlier, gets about 5 yards on first down.
You saw the pursuit by Georgia Tech there. It was interesting when we talked to Tavares Tillman. He said one of the things that I hope we do in this ball game is I hope that we play hard every play. That's one of the things that we haven't done so far. And with so many young guys, you kind of look around waiting for somebody else to make the play. That time, even though they pursued and over-pursued a little bit, there were a lot of guys trying to make the play, and good things happen when you do that.
Ken Dorsey is the quarterback for Miami. And they give again to Portis, and Clinton Portis plowing his way before Kreisen and Gathers make the hit on him. He'll be just short of a first down, bring up about a 3rd and 4 yards to go. So Georgia Tech trying to engineer another 3 and out for Miami.
Got to get those defensive signals called a little earlier.
Fulcher is in motion. The handoff is to Portis. And Clinton Portis will be stopped very close to the first down by Ross Mitchell. It's right at the sticks. And they'll have to call timeout to measure. Portis, thanks to that 73-yard jaunt, is approaching 100 yards rushing.
You know, all the officials are out there and they're getting the measurement ready. And George O'Leary, he wants one official just to come to his side so he can work him a little bit. Work him for a holding call. You know, they've been running wide. They've been running these stretch plays. Somebody's got to be grabbing some jersey. And that's what George O'Leary wants to convey to the head linesman and then the back judge on his side of the field, that they've got to be holding my guys. My guys are good and they're getting held. Now you call them.
Miami's initial first down of the second half. Dorsey on first down attempts a short pass to McPartland, and it comes up short and incomplete. Dorsey in his first bowl appearance has not had a sharp game.
You know, and I think for Butch Davis, he talked about playing the quarterback with the hot hand, and that guy was Kenny Kelly. And Ken Dorsey, you know, he came in on that first drive where they scored a touchdown, but all he did was stick the ball in the belly of James Jackson. And if he's not doing that, he hadn't been very effective throwing the football.
2nd and 10. Portis, no place to go, does manage to lower his head and get back to the line of scrimmage. Chris Edwards tries on, got great penetration for the Georgia Tech defense.
And they're gambling a little bit here. You see Winbush coming from the backside. He gets knocked down, but there are guys all around. And when you make a running back start and stop behind the line of scrimmage and you have pursuit, gets back to what Tillman said. We want the guys to play hard. Everybody to play hard every play, and we can make something good happen.
Pressure now on quarterback Ken Dorsey, who's not had a good day throwing the football, on 3rd and 10. Gonna roll, cut off, looks downfield, wired on a rope to the 40 to Santana Moss. Dorsey winged that one. He had some steam on it. He had to, and got it right to Santana Moss.
I mean, he stepped into that one, and sometimes when you have to move around in the pocket, you don't know where you're going. Panic mode sets in. He doesn't panic here. He drills this ball down the field, and all of a sudden you see into your picture Santana Moss coming to save the day. That looked like a ball that was just almost being thrown out into the area. Now, maybe Ken Dorsey had better vision than I do, but I'm not sure if he saw Moss when he first released that pass.
Kind of had a wobble on it, but it got there, and a first down Miami. They're at the 40-yard line of the Yellow Jackets. Dorsey hit as he let that one go, and a one-handed catch made by Reggie Wayne. Wayne steps out of a tackle and has a Miami first down. Dorsey just threw a rainbow as he was hit, and Wayne hauled it in with one hand, then made a nice move to get first down yardage.
You've heard the terminology zone blitz, and what that means is you actually blitz and you play zone coverage behind it. And you see a guy wide open, there's nobody on because you're blitzing, you're bringing extra people, but you're still just playing a zone defense. They're playing a soft kind of 2-deep coverage, and that time Wayne able to get open. We saw earlier where Kenny Kelly missed 2 guys who were in the same area. That's because Georgia Tech is blitzing and playing that zone coverage behind it.
Reggie Wayne stepped out of his shoe, had to get it put back on. That was the move he made to get first down yardage. Here's a running play to Portis. Chris Young at the bottom of the stack for Georgia Tech after a gain of about 4 yards.
and you see the Georgia Tech guys come up out of the pile with that ball. I mean, they're fighting, they're scratching, they're trying to get everything. You see Bubba Franks is looking toward the sideline. You know why he's looking toward the sideline? He just wants the coaches to recognize him. Because obviously they've forgotten who he is. He had some big plays early on, and he's saying, I'm the guy. You know, I'm the man on this team. We got a lot of good little guys, but I'm the man.
He's too big to be invisible. Tech's done a good job of taking him out of the game, apparently. Hand off to Portis. Spinning his way forward and has exceeded 100 yards rushing now. Tackled by Jeremy Myers. Clinton Portis with 100 yards rushing.
And sometimes when guys don't get the football, they can pout a little bit. Bubba Franks, what does he do? He takes it out on Gathers, drives him completely out of the play. You see the running room that Portis has. And you talk about a complete tight end. We saw the pass catching skills earlier, his ability to run after the catch. Well, that really is the thing that ties it all together, that separates you from being a receiving back or a guy who can just block. He's both.
3rd down and 3. Play action fake. Pass complete to McPartland, and he has the Miami first down. Key 3rd down conversion. McPartland, the fullback, on the pass from Dorsey. Edwards makes the tackle, but not until they had first down yardage.
And just enough. McPartland, normally a blocker. You see him turn that head around so he can get involved in the passing game. He knows that he's the main guy here, and that he has to look quickly. And when that defensive end goes past him, he knows that's trouble for the quarterback, and I have to be the guy to catch the football.
Miami's put together a nice drive here, faced with Georgia Tech recapturing the momentum, or capturing it. They've never had it, really. On the sweep, Portis. Georgia Tech defense did a good job of stringing it out, and the pursuit finally collapses. Jamar Clark down at the bottom of the stack will get credit for the tackle.
You know, when you've been off for a month, you kind of wonder where your conditioning is. Right now, I'm watching guys walk back to the huddle on each side of the ball, and actually it's the Miami guys who have their hands on their hips. Now, granted, you got a lot of big offensive linemen out there who are doing a lot of work, but these defensive guys are flying all around for Georgia Tech.
2nd down. Dorsey fakes the handoff, throws for the end zone, and the pass is
great catch.
Touchdown, Reggie Wayne. Wayne, who made a one-handed grab earlier to keep the drive alive, goes to the corner of the end zone and somehow hauls this one down for the touchdown.
When Reggie Wayne and Jamar Clark stand side by side, Wayne has them by about 5 inches, and you can see the difference right there. Good coverage by Clark. He read the play. He knew what was coming. Just didn't know that the guy was going to sky over the top of him like that.
17-yard touchdown catch by Reggie Wayne. His 5th of the year. Crosland, the extra point attempt, puts it up and through the uprights and good. So Miami appeared to be knocked back on their heels by Georgia Tech. Totally ineffective in the 3rd quarter. But they open the 4th with an impressive drive to take command of the game. Dorsey hitting Reggie Wayne in the end zone. And now after the extra point, it's Miami 28 and Georgia Tech 13. All right, I'm back here at the Toyota Gator Bowl in Jacksonville. 28-13, Miami's upped its lead after an impressive 12-play, 63-yard drive, and George O'Leary has his Irish up over on the Georgia Tech sideline.
And, you know, I think you can draw it up so many times and say, okay, this is the way we got to get it done. But eventually the players just have to make a play, and you just say, okay, forget about what I'm drawing up. Let's get out there and make plays, guys. He probably feels better now he got that off his chest.
Not a whole lot better when he looks at the scoreboard. That was a key drive by Miami just when it appeared that Georgia Tech had it going their way after a 3rd quarter. Crosland will kick off for Miami. White and Campbell, the deep end for Georgia Tech. Into the end zone where Campbell again will bring it out. And he's to the 30, cuts back, and then taken down at that spot by Ken Dangerfield. Let's go to Craig Sager.
Well, you mentioned that George O'Leary was yelling at the defense. Also, he was yelling at the offense. As we talked about earlier, Joe Hamilton has the ability to check up to 90% of the plays at the line of scrimmage. However, Coach O'Leary said, listen, all you're doing is going wide. Look up the field. Look for Dez. Go up the field vertically. Tom?
All right, Joe Hamilton with only 9 minutes left in his college career. He's been 18-4 his last 22 games, has 7 game-saving drives. Can he make it 8? Play action fake, and he goes deep down the sideline. And the catch is not quite made. Mike Rumpf was able to take Des White and separate him from the football. Rumpf, the sophomore from Delray Beach. Craig said, look for Des. He looked for him.
And you have to make this play. You expect to be a big-time receiver. You want to play well at the next level. Nice timing by Rumpf, but somehow you have to come up with a deep ball. I always thought that it was okay to drop a 5 or a 10-yard pass. But when the offensive line has gone through the effort, the quarterback has made the move in the pocket, you've run that far down the field, you come up with a play, whatever it takes.
That would have been big for the local hero, Des White from Orange Park, Florida, and the co-MVP with Hamilton last year in the Gator Bowl. Hamilton's pass, nice catch. That time Des went up top to haul it in as he found a spot right in the middle of the Miami defense, and though Hamilton laid it high, Des able to go up and get it before being tackled by Leonard Myers.
Nice job in flooding the zone. They get a guy short. They run Des White to the corner, and Joe Hamilton really drops this ball in nicely. He has to take it up over the top. Des White, he knows that, you know, guys are in. The guys can come and take a nice shot on him, but he goes up, exposes himself, and the thing that he does well, he also gets back down on the ground.
On the triple option handoff to Ed Wilder, and he has about a 10-yard gain. Al Blades brings the big fullback down, and he's close to a first down. And it is a Georgia Tech first down. Blades, meanwhile, is injured. And while they tend to Al Blades, we'll take a break. 28-13, Miami. Beautiful day in Jacksonville, Florida. Toyota Gator Bowl day on the first day of the new year. 28-13, Miami leads Georgia Tech. 8:36 showing in the game. Total of 32 seniors on both teams playing in their final collegiate contest. One of them, Joe Hamilton, with a handoff. Clinkscale got very little. Tackled by Matt Sweeney. Meanwhile, let's go back to the Al Blades injury.
Hey, you saw Blades getting worked on the sideline. You see him come into your picture right there, and his knee meets the helmet of his teammate. You know what? And you would think his knee got hurt, but you can cramp up just as easily because what you're trying to do, you're trying to defend yourself, and you're in a defensive position. Webster got his big head on Blades' knee, and I think he just cramped up. You can see him over there actually taking a drink and getting a rub down.
2nd and 10. The Miami defenders come crashing across where they've drawn off. We'll sort this one out.
Good ball. Ball start. Offense. 5-yard penalty. Remains second down.
And tonight, NBC celebrates the start of the new millennium with a special Saturday movie presentation. Steven Spielberg's mega hit Jurassic Park. That's Jurassic Park in prime time tonight at 8 Eastern here on NBC. With the 5-yard step off, it's 2nd down and 15 for Georgia Tech. Joe Hamilton across the middle. Should have been picked off through the hands of Nate Webster. Looking again for Des White. Webster looked to be so astonished that the ball was coming his way, he just couldn't handle it.
Yeah, you watch Joe White drop back. Joe Hamilton, he got his name mixed up. He's looking for Des White. Those guys had been linked together, so White and Hamilton. At that time, Webster right in the middle of that pass route.
It's 3rd down and 15. High-powered Georgia Tech offense held at 27 points below their average. Low snap. Hamilton picks it up. rears back and heaves it for White downfield, and it will be incomplete. Leonard Myers was right with White, and a 3rd and long downfield goes incomplete. It's 4th down.
And we talked about the desperation mode, and that's what has happened to Joe Hamilton. He's trying to hit Des White, but in the middle of the field, he had Kelly Campbell wide open. He has a chance on the deep ball here, but Des White just can't make the adjustment. It's thrown over the wrong shoulder and thrown short.
Dan Dyke in punt formation. Moss at the 10. Trying to work his way free, but can't wiggle loose. Taken down at the 15-yard line by Kelvin Hughley. Well, time running out on Joe Hamilton, hoping to engineer another Tech comeback as he has so many times. Just 7:29 remaining in the Gator Bowl. All right, thank you, Dan. And Miami bidding for a 4th straight bowl game victory, leading Georgia Tech 28-13, which would deny the Engineers their 2nd consecutive Gator Bowl triumph. They beat Notre Dame here last year. Play action fake. Dorsey at quarterback and has Bubba Franks. Bubba still on his feet, almost to midfield. They didn't forget about Bubba that time, and Dorsey too, the freshman quarterback, the last couple of series has been able to find his groove.
Very nice call by the offensive coordinator, Larry Coker. Because you're thinking, okay, we need to run the clock out. Georgia Tech is thinking that. But what do? You open it up with play action pass. You get Bubba Franks coming across. And Bubba does a nice job in staying in bounds. You know, he's actually looking for somebody to run over. He wants highlight film material.
Dorsey, after going forever to complete a pass, has now hit 5 in a row. Handoff. Jackson to the Georgia Tech 45-yard line. Chris Young and Ross Mitchell combining for the hit. And the clock ticks down to 6:45 and counting. And you would think Miami would try to play a little ball control now in Georgia Tech territory and leading 28-13. Jackson again. Had a hole for a moment, which closed in a hurry, and he only got a couple of yards. Ross Mitchell again makes the stop, as all Joe Hamilton can do is watch and think about what might have been.
And the toughest thing, we talked about how great his career has been. He's responsible for 59 individual or school records at Georgia Tech, numerous records in the ACC, and you have a last ball game like this, and that's what really sticks with you. It takes a while before you can remember some of the good times.
The man who literally put Alvin, South Carolina on the map. The state changed the maps to put that town of 500, home of Joe Hamilton, on it the next time one is issued. As the run by Jackson loses a yard. Ricardo Wimbush with a good play for the Tech defense. And it'll be 4th down. Joe's parents have not had that pleasant a visit to Jacksonville, considering the outcome of this game.
Well, you got a 4th and 2 here, and Butch Davis and his staff are going to let the clock bleed down, and they call a timeout right before it gets down, before the play clock runs off.
We were talking to George O'Leary about Joe Hamilton when he said, as you mentioned earlier, that his greatest asset perhaps is his competitive nature. And he said during their trip here to Jacksonville for the Gator Bowl, they went to sort of an amusement park one day and they played a lot of games and things there. And the next day was a day off. You had a little time to yourself. What did Joe do? He went back out there because there were a couple of games he didn't win.
Yeah.
He wanted revenge. Very competitive young man, and has already been drafted to the Canadian Football League, but hoping to make it in the NFL, just like his hero, Doug Flutie.
Well, we sat down his receivers, Des White and Kelly Campbell, and we said, do you think he can make it in the NFL? They said, without a doubt. They said his leadership, his character, his athletic ability, that they really believe that this guy can play in the NFL. And they said, you know what, he could probably play any position other than offensive line.
Glover is deep for the Capshaw punt on 4th down. Good punt by Capshaw. Glover's going to let it hit, but it does bound into the end zone. So touchback. Georgia Tech will have it at the 20-yard line after that 48-yard punt. And the Yellow Jackets trailing 28-13. It's 28-13 Miami. Toyota Gator Bowl winding down with 4:44 remaining. Georgia Tech takes over on its own 20-yard line. Precious few seconds left for Joe Hamilton, who comes out on a quarterback draw and picks up 9 yards to the 29-yard line.
Hamilton to the 29.
Tackled there by Nate Webster.
Nate Webster there.
See those ankle straps that are loose on Joe Hamilton. He wears those instead of taping his ankles.
And they're going with the no huddle.
Second and short.
The clock at 4:20. Behind Des White, incomplete.
Pass intended for Des White's behind him.
Somebody's helmet came off in there. The Damian Lewis lost his helmet.
They get new chin straps for these guys. Normally a helmet comes off. One of those pads inside will come loose, and it's funny, you get so much tape on your hands when you're a big guy, and you can't get the pads back in by yourself. You got to go get one of the trainers to help you out. Matt
Walters replacing Lewis. Hamilton dives ahead for the first down. So Tech picks up a first down, but the clock has come down to 4 minutes, 15 seconds. It stops with the first down, and then will be rewound by the official. Marks the ball ready for play and winds the clock. Hamilton's pass on target. Catch made by Des White. Immediately taken out by Leonard Myers.
Leonard Myers on the cover.
Spot the ball at the Georgia Tech 46 or 7-yard line. 46, where it's first down, Tech. Hamilton with a complete. He got it complete to Clinkscale out of the backfield that time. Myers and Morgan again force him out of bounds. Tech working the sidelines and stops the clock at 3:57.
And you see Georgia Tech able to move the ball in spurts, but the thing that has eluded them today has been the big play. They had the opportunity on the deep pass to Des White, but they haven't gone deep that often. The running game has been there from time to time, but it just has not been a consistent movement of the football.
Tech trails by 15 points. And time running out. Hamilton's pass good. Inside the 20 to Kerry Watkins. Watkins, who finally got into action in the second half, makes that reception, then tackled by Webster and Reed.
And nice job by Joe Hamilton holding that ball as long as possible until the last minute and getting it in, dropping it over. Watkins, who wasn't available for the first half, makes a nice reception there.
Ball's at the 16 of Miami. Hamilton's pass fumbled away, incomplete by Russell Matvey, the tight end.
Second time we've seen that play happen to the tight ends. The last time it was Andrew Sisson. Dropped the ball. Matvey that time, ball right in his hands. And you know what? He can smell, hear, taste, touchdown, but you got to catch the ball first.
Second and 10 from the 16 of Miami. 3:44 on the clock. Hamilton sacked at the 25-yard line by strong safety Edward Reed.
Loss of 6 on the play. Timeout, Georgia Tech.
And with this sack by Reed, Georgia Tech will call a timeout with a big loss on the play.
Tough thing there. Matvey got beat for the sack, and he dropped the pass, and Georgia Leary is not happy on the sidelines.
Back after a word from your local station. back at the Toyota Gator Bowl, where with 3:31 left, Georgia Tech faces a 4th down and 16. While we're away, a play was run, an incomplete 3rd down pass. So it's 4th and 16 for Tech. One last gasp for the Yellow Jackets. Hamilton steps up for the end zone. Intercepted. Intercepted by Leonard Myers. Well, George O'Leary said he and Joe Hamilton had been down a lot of roads together, and for him, he wanted it to end on the proper note, and it doesn't appear that it's going to turn out that way.
I mean, Joe Hamilton's still giving you everything that he has at the end of the ball game. He said, you know, the one thing I want, and you hear athletes say this, I want to be able to look in the mirror and think that I've played as well as I possibly can, as hard as I can. I think Joe Hamilton will be able to do that. You're not going to win every ball game. It's not always going to be the Cinderella story, but, you know, you talk about drop passes. He had plenty of them. They had a touchdown on 2nd down. They make the easy catch.
15 of 33, 2 interceptions, 214 yards passing for Joe Hamilton today. And play a stop to reset the play clock. Miami took control. There's the timeout situation. Miami took control of this game from the outset. Georgia Tech came in with the nation's best offense, but the 100th ranked defense. Miami took the opening kickoff, marched 67 yards down the field for a score, and it never trailed. Georgia Tech got a little spark just before halftime and then came out and dominated the 3rd quarter, so they didn't put that many points on the board, and then Miami turned it around with a long drive in the 4th, and their defense, again, completely cutting off any Georgia Tech rally. Chris Young with a tackle of Portis, who's gained over 100 yards today thanks to a 73-yard touchdown jaunt.
Take a look at Miami. I mean, Georgia Tech and what Miami has been able to not let them do today. The biggest one is really right up there on the top, averaging almost 41 points a game. Today only coming up with 13, but there were missed opportunities. They had deep pass that gets dropped. They have passes in the flat. They could go for touchdowns that get dropped and missed a couple of field goals. So, you know, it's been a lot of what Miami has done defensively and Georgia Tech's inability to convert their opportunities when they've had them.
James Jackson had a big game for Miami. On that opening touchdown drive, he racked up 50 yards rushing and scored the touchdown. And Miami content to work on the clock as Tech's hopes fade away. And if this game ends without Joe Hamilton throwing a touchdown pass, it'll be the first time this season that he's been blanked. Not the way he or his coach had hoped that Hamilton would close his college career. James Jackson again tripped up. And don't forget, when the Toyota Gator Bowl comes to a close, we'll be sending you to live golf coverage, the Williams World Challenge out in Scottsdale, Arizona. That's live golf, the Williams World Challenge, coming up right at the end of this Toyota Gator Bowl. And the clock shows 1:48 and counting, with Miami in control. It will be the 4th straight bowl game win for the Hurricanes. And Joe Hamilton's hopes of repeating as Gator Bowl champion and maybe as MVP have gone by the wayside. He'll now have a chance to reflect on his great collegiate career and start to thinking about maybe making the NFL despite his diminutive size. James Jackson breaking tackles.
That's a fumble. Joe Hamilton is back on the field.
And Georgia Tech recovers. Jeremy Myers recovers the James Jackson fumble.
Yeah, they didn't see turnovers during the regular season. They've created 2 today. And this may be a little too late with 1 minute and 19 seconds, but you talk about the legend of Joe Hamilton. How much would it grow if he was able to pull this off? And I think there was another short quarterback who had a miracle finish against the Miami team once upon a time.
That was Chris Young that caused the fumble. He's played a good game today for the Georgia Tech defense. A much maligned Yellow Jacket defensive unit. Just a minute 19 showing, though. Ball just short of midfield. Hamilton. Nice move by Des White to evade the initial tackler, and then he goes out of bounds, pushed out by Fitzgerald with a minute 11 showing.
Got to be able to work the middle of the field in this situation. Got a very deep zone. They even have a guy hanging in the deep middle, but you still can't be afraid to come in there. See Greg Schiano, the defensive coordinator, kicking his leg. He's just sending in signals, and they do all kind of gyrations to get those signals in.
Hamilton again completes it in the flat. This one to Clinkscale. It ducks out of bounds. Jeff Popovich there to make sure he went out and stops the clock at a minute 5. Ball just short of first down yardage, about a yard short.
You know, Miami's just trying to keep everything in front of them. When you come up to the line of scrimmage and you see safeties lined up about 15 or 20 yards off the ball, makes it pretty tough. You see the line of linebackers there 10 yards deep.
Hamilton chased from the pocket and sacked. Burrow and Morgan combining to put the clamps on Joe Hamilton, and the Yellow Jackets use their final timeout of the game. 55 seconds remaining.
And that's simply coverage downfield. We talked about the guys off the ball. Chris Brown, the left tackle, he'll be the guy who everybody points the finger to, but Joe Hamilton had time, tried to buy some extra time, didn't realize that Burrow was just bearing down on him.
55 seconds left, and Miami will go back celebrating a victory here in the Gator Bowl. School's out at Miami, so many of the players traveling independently and many returning home. And how good will Miami be next year? Impressive showing here in the Gator Bowl, and a young team that has a few questions to answer and a few spots to fill, but overall should be dynamite next year.
Well, I think for Miami it depends on how well Butch Davis does talking to guys and telling them, you know, you really do need to return for that senior season. He has 2 quarterbacks to choose from. We got to watch both of them play. Dorsey a little bit of a slow start, but came on and did well down the stretch.
January 10th is the date that underclassmen must declare for the NFL draft. Hamilton got away from the first wave. Burrow, and then they all collapse him, and Hamilton with no timeouts left trying to regroup, but his career ticking away. Dominant performance by the Miami Hurricanes today. Hamilton winds up and delivers. Out of bounds.
I think the guys forgot it was 4th down there.
And it was 4th down. They did not get out to the first down sticks. Just trying to duck out of bounds and save the time. And so for the final time in the Georgia Tech Gold, with his parents looking on, Joe Hamilton will walk to the sideline. And from the Georgia Tech fans that are still here, a warm round of applause for all he has meant to Georgia Tech football.
And not only Georgia Tech football, but also college football. I mean, you watch his demeanor, even in defeat, you can tell that he's a true gentleman and walks off the field with his head held high. Like I said, he gave it the best effort that he had, just didn't make the plays today.
And Miami will take a knee and down the clock. And the Hurricane faithful will start thinking about next season, which should be a bright one for Butch Davis and his Hurricanes. As the final seconds tick away, the Toyota Gator Bowl championship belongs to the University of Miami Hurricanes and their coach, Butch Davis. The final score, Miami 28, Georgia Tech 13. Canes took the opening kick, went all the way down the field, and never trailed despite a lapse in the 3rd quarter, and win it 28-13. So for James Lofton and Craig Sager, this is Tom Hammond saying Happy New Year, Happy New Millennium, and so long from the Gator Bowl in Jacksonville, Florida. Now we'll take you right to the Williams World Challenge Golf in Scottsdale, Arizona.